Wow, that music drop was perfect. Hello, everyone. This is Matt, your Chaotic Writer, and thank you very much for tuning into today's stream. Today is going to be a meeting. It is going to be a meeting of the minds between multiple dungeon masters of Project Aurora, which is a living universe setting. That is to say, living universe D&D community where all of the settings from each of the campaigns are all connected together. We have embarked upon a brand new project. It is a mini project within Project Aurora. And this particular project is to basically, from the ground up, build an entirely new setting and world with all new dungeon masters, all new lore masters, homebrewers, artists, musicians, the whole kit and caboodle. Sensei Suplex, who is the Grand Poobah of Project Aurora, he is in the midst of running a Dungeons and Dragons stream right now, specifically running one of his Soulbound games, but he will be tuning in pretty soon here. For the meantime, I will be running this Dungeon Master meeting, and we're going to be going over a number of different points. Some of these points I've already delivered in the announcements section a few weeks ago, but we're also going to review some of the Lore Masters meeting notes and capturing other essentials, like a real-time look at what everybody's preferred availability is to run games. Because the idea of this mini project is we are creating a setting. It's a brand new setting, and we are going to be running a series of one-shots. Every Dungeon Master is going to be running one-shot. And this is basically, you could consider it as the debut for this brand new setting. And each one-shot is going to be connected to each other within the same exact setting. Things that happen in one shot will affect things that happen in another one shot. And this is at the heart and the basis of Project Aurora as a project. The entire idea of bringing all of these people together and working on a setting and the lore and the story as one, rather than having individual having, separate settings that don't interact with each other. So if you are new to this whole concept, one thing you could certainly do is you can go over to the doobly-doo, that is to say the chat, and you could click on the Discord link that I have posted. That is for the Project Aurora Discord, and feel free to say hi. Obviously, you won't be able to speak to the Dungeon Masters in the Discord because we'll be in the middle of a meeting, but you can certainly chat here on this stream. And when Sensei Suplex comes in, his stream will be pivoting over to the same discussion as we're having. So, without further ado, I'm going to do my best to kick this meeting off, and I'm going to switch it over to our esteemed Dungeon Masters. Some of them are present on webcam, and some of them are, just kind of laying back, chilling, waiting for some new information and some opportunity to interact. So, let us begin. Except, my goodness, I just realized something. I'm going to fix that really quick. I want to make sure that I'm screwing up already. Let me go over and make sure that I have the necessary source. Where is it here? The invoice, that is correct. We want that to be full screen, transform, fit to screen. Although for some reason it's all the way to the left or something. Okay, so we're going to bring that over here. And now we're going to transition over. Bada bing, there we go. And of course, my lovely face will need to show up on this fantastic Brady Bunch setup of a meeting. So I'm going to undeafen, and we're going to start talking to our esteemed dungeon masters. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, hello.
Greetings.
Slight technical difficulties there.
They are not unusual. However, I appreciate every single one of you making your presence today and showing up to this particular meeting. And as I mentioned, we're going to be going over a bunch of the stuff from the announcement that I'd sent out I want to say a couple weeks ago, along with some brand new, fresh, exciting updates from the Lore Master meeting. And I am excited because we have a setting confirmed for Dungeons and Dragons Project Aurora, which is Clockwork Skies and Green Tides.
Beautiful. I
See
love
if
the
I can
name.
turn on camera. Okay, my camera is on. Sweet. So, the short version, of course, is Clockwork Skies and Green Tides is based upon the premise where the PCs, the humanoid civilization, that is to say, the remnants of that civilization, is located within floating cities, steampunk technology, that is to say, steampunk and magic combined together to allow these cities to float into the air, hovering over I would not say desolate, but I would absolutely say that it is an abandoned, overgrown terrain underneath where nature has pretty much fought back and taken over the entire surface with the assistance of Fae-like creatures. And there is this existential threat to civilization as it has arisen to the sky to escape this invasion. I guess you could, depending upon your stance, you could call it a retaking, but let's just say an invasion of nature throughout the entire surface. It is an extremely hostile environment where nature will literally try to kill you at every turn if you are found down on that surface. And in the midst of this, there is this building towards a final confrontation with the forces that have overtaken the surface, and there is this construction of this clockwork titan. So lot of things to digest, a lot of things to create and speculate. And what I really want to do right away is actually talk about what I want to do here is I'm going to go down the list, and I'm actually going to have all of our esteemed dungeon masters introduce themselves on stream, provide basically their name, a bit about their experience running Dungeons and Dragons, and an interesting, let's just say an interesting fact about you, some maybe quirky or interesting hobby or some experience that you participated in this past year, something to kind of break the ice. So to start with, we're gonna go alphabetical. We're gonna start with Adam.
Well, my name is indeed Adam. Otherwise known as RDM. I don't really have an interesting fact, and you've sort of put me on the spot because I'm not a very interesting person. I run Dungeons and Dragons semi-professionally in the world of Olvania, my homebrew world, and I've ran D&D games for approximately 6-7 years now. And sort of semi-professionally for the last 2.
Okay.
And yeah, as I say, I don't really have an interesting fact, so I scorn you.
Well, if not an interesting fact, what are your favorite pillars of Dungeons and Dragons? That would be a better question.
Oh, it would have to be either the role-playing aspect, the sort of social aspects, or the adventure. I love entwining both of those things, and sort of exploring a deep world of lore. That's my my preference when running D&D.
Absolutely. And I'm sure that many of the dungeon masters have very similar preferences when it comes to the pillars. And we're gonna hear similar from each of them. Thank you very much, Adiem. Also, do you have a stream by chance? If anybody does have a stream or have a particular main social media outlet, feel free to post it in chat, or you could just DM, or for some reason, if you can't, you can DM me, and then I'll post it.
So you can find me at AH_DM. I stream all my three campaigns and adventures, generally sort of rotating shorter anthology adventures every Saturday. But yeah, you can find me there. Thank you.
All right. Is that under Twitch?
That is on Twitch, yeah.
Okay, so AH_DM.
Yeah.
Boom. There we go. So, hey, and anybody who is watching, of course, this is an opportunity for everybody to support each other in their individual efforts and individual projects. So, if you are present in the stream today, be sure to, check out each other's social, follow, do all of the things that are of good faith for a community such as this. And so on and so forth. We're going to move it over towards Apra.
Hi, my name is not Adam. Yeah, my name's Apra. I've been DMing for the last 6.5, 7 years. So I've also been in here a couple years in the DMing business. Long time DM, like been a player twice before for one shots and nothing else. I run 3 campaigns right now. My 4th one will be for the mini project. I'm very excited about the setting, and I'm basically just talking now. I forgot what the questions were.
Oh, it was basically name your little bit of experience about your D&D, and then I guess it may be better to say your choice between what are your favorite pillars of D&D or a quirky fact.
Well, a quirky fact would be that I spent more money on Warhammer this month than on rent.
Dang.
Sounds about
that
right.
is commitment, my friend. That is commitment. 100%.
Isn't that just what happens when you play Warhammer?
I mean,
don't listen my quirky fact.
I mean, I feel like Warhammer, in order to be good and I don't know if I would necessarily say competitive, but like locally competitive, that you have to shell out some money for Warhammer. But hey, if I have any Warhammer questions, I mean, I love Warhammer lore, by the way. I'm always watching YouTube videos on Warhammer lore, and some of it is just bonkers. But in terms of the game, if I have any questions, I know exactly who to go to.
Absolutely. One idea, what you can check out. Warhammer Tau Rebellion lore. It's just top notch.
Fantastic. Do you have a social media or a Twitch channel?
Well, I will stream on Twitch again when we start playing. It's Casual Opera, twitch.tv/Casual Opera. If you want to type that out.
Casual, is it underscore or is it?
No,
yeah.
I just messaged in your chat also.
All right. So that might be a smoother way to go, because typing all of them might not be the best way to go. Hold on a sec. All right. So in the meantime, since I am the next person up, oh, where did you post it? Because I don't see it posted.
Oh, I just dropped a message in your chat, not a link.
Oh, it didn't show up.
It didn't show
chat?
up.
Oh wait. Oh, that is to say, okay, I see.
You didn't post a link. It's just my name. It's my name.
All right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, moving it on to me. Of course, my name is Matt. You're Chaotic and Writer, and I have been I've been DMing for over at this point well over a decade. Second edition, third edition, and mostly fifth edition. And I've also dabbled in a number of other tabletop systems, but D&D is sort of the bread and butter for my preferences. And quirky fact about me, if I'm just going to throw a random thing out there, I did a few years ago take a trip to Nepal and actually hiked the Himalayas, which was a really fun trip. But also, I do want to show off that I do have a fantastic new shirt. It is in reverse, but it says Dungeon Meowster.
Oh, I have a shirt that says that too. It's a different design. It's so great. I wear it every time I DM.
Yeah.
Or try to.
So I get to show that off today. And of course, no need for social media because I'm running this on the present stream. However, moving it onward, let us talk with Core Brute. Please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, I'm Core Brute. I'm also known as Chirag. I've been a DM. I've been playing role-playing games for about 16 years now. Started with 3.5 and Eberron, and then since then I've been playing a bunch of different stuff. I've been playing Pathfinder. I've been playing Hero. What's it called? Hero System, Shadowrun, Fiasco, lots of different indie games. Power by the Apocalypse, one of my favorite systems. Still looking for that perfect sci-fi system, or at least someone to let me play it enough. But yeah, I've been playing D&D for quite a while, and so with two of my close friends started Daisies and Dragons, which is one of the biggest Indian TTRPG community, as we're trying to get more Indians interested in playing Dungeons and Dragons. We have a YouTube channel. We've just gone onto Twitch. Can I share the link to the Twitch and
absolutely 100%. If the link doesn't go through, you could always DM it to me on Discord and I can post it.
Okay.
I don't know where my chat bot is right now in terms of things and stuff. So
sure, I'll just message it to you. But what was I going to say? And yeah, you wanted an interesting fact about me. What's it called? An interesting fact. Nothing's coming to mind. So I'll just say I'm doing this currently while having COVID, because when Chaotician gets the whip out, you come, even if you've lost your head, you still come running.
You're making me seem like I'm like a whoosh. It's like everybody get in line and like all standing up. I am not.
Are you not?
I'm not a tyrant. I promise.
To be here?
You guys
are not
haven't
forced
seen
to be
the
here
chat.
right now.
Send help.
Send help.
That would actually be a pretty rad like social media image if all of you wrote like "send help" and then showed it up to your. I mean, you don't have to, but like that would be funny. But anyways, yeah, I mean. I know that when you'd mentioned that you were basically the central person. I mean, mistake me if I'm wrong. You're the dungeon master of the.
For our current campaign that we're doing, an Eberron campaign, the Broken 12, I am the DM, and we've been doing that for about 26 episodes, so over 30 weeks. We've been doing, because it's a weekly campaign. But we have done other games which have been one shots or two parts, where other people have taken the roles of DMs, like the other guys, or guest DMs. But currently, I have been the majority DM so far. It may get to point next campaign, or we maybe do a bunch of one shots what someone else is doing. Like Indrani just did a lovely game of Yoziba.
Awesome.
Yoziba's bed and breakfast. So yeah, definitely. I'm not the only one who could DM, but they're all
Sure.
very good DMs.
But you're one of the you're basically one of the people who's at the forefront of like rolling out D&D in sort of in your region. It sounds like the way that you presented it.
Daisy and Dragons is like we're trying to like create like a very like we're trying to create the community and also make the community like a healthy one. We want to make it one that's like inclusive to like people who are LGBT positive. We want to make it inclusive to anyone who regardless of their class and creed. We want people to feel like inclusive, wanted. We don't want people to feel like left out, so that we want to basically make everyone someone you'd like to have at your table.
Yeah.
We don't want to have like people just like be these like little like gatekeepers. We don't need bad habits coming in. We want like new habits so that D&D feels different, and unique to our culture, but also like still as welcoming that you'd find them anywhere else in the world. We're also enjoying the good parts in D&D.
Set a good positive foundation for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
I might have some questions for you about Shadowrun in the future because I love the Shadowrun lore, and I have like a few different books from like 5th and 6th edition that for some reason my brain is just not clicking on some of those crunchy mechanics.
Shadowrun, the 5th edition book I got for my birthday, is the most beautiful book I cannot make heads or tails of.
Yeah. So I'll have some questions. I'll have some questions. We can have a discussion about it sometime in the future for sure.
Go for it.
Then following that, we have. I just want to make sure. Oh yeah, you did send me your link. Okay. And this is the link to Corberoot's Twitch channel. Next up is going to be. Is it Mika or Micah?
Micah is correct. Thank you.
Micah. Fantastic.
Cool. So yeah, Micah, or I sometimes go by Zinningen if you're looking at me on any gamer tag. That's how it just tends to be. I've got about 6 years of experience in Dungeons and Dragons. That's also including my beginnings in Pathfinder, and then a little bit of dabbling in World of Darkness stuff. So that's Solar Exalted, the Vampire the Masquerade stuff, Scion, just dabbling in that kind of thing in the more recent years. If you're looking for an interesting fact, as a software engineer, I worked on the exact same program that I used to later in life help myself through an interesting mental situation in my own life, which I thought was quite cool. If you're looking for my favorite pillar of D&D, it's obviously the roleplay one. I quite enjoy just the in-person stepping into somebody else's shoes. And I'm slowly beginning a stream. So if you're looking at Zinningen, or you'll probably find me in chat, that's more or less where you can find me.
Fantastic. And I know that...
Hey, I think you're on mute on the Discord.
Oops, yeah, sorry.
Oops, that is a mistake.
Silly
and
Billy.
From what would you say is your absolute favorite pillar of D&D?
It definitely ends up being the more social one. I found a lot of interesting cases. I basically, if you're going to call it in like League of Legends term, I main Curse of Strahd because people really love the whole interactions with the hauntings and that kind of thing, the strange things that they get to hear and see when they enter Castle Ravenloft, and they get to speak to the big bad there, and even just like the little bit of like interactions that they have with him, rather than actually getting into a scuffle with him, rather than exploring the castle. They love the personality that he has to present, and they really bounce off of that.
Absolutely. D&D is a very social game. I don't think I've seen a single compelling D&D stream or D&D game without some really well executed and thought out social pillar.
Sure.
So, absolutely. So feel free to post if you have I think you mentioned actually. I think you just sent me. No, it was somebody else.
It's literally just myself in chat. I'll just do the same thing that Opera did. Thanks, though.
Absolutely. And thank you as well. In the meantime, we now have Sweeney Todd. Feel free to tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey guys, first off, man, I wish I would have brought my mic because I'm just listening to your guys' mic, and I'm just like, oh man, I'm using my laptop right now, and yeah, mic just went up, and I'm like, oh, that mic sounds good. So my name is Trevor, and I have been playing D&D for 2.5 years now as a DM, and another 2.5 years as a player. And my favorite part of D&D is just telling a story. If my players can walk away from a session and feel something from it, whether they just had fun, whether it was just laughter, or whether it was a bit of like fear or excitement or awe. Yeah, fear. Ooh, horror. That's I love that stuff. If they can just feel something, or if they are getting involved in the story, and they like to develop the story that's happening. That for me, that's just the win. It's the story. It's the story part of it. So that's myself as a DM. A little fun thing about me, I would say, is why people see my name Sweeney Todd. I'm like, whoa, that's why'd you choose Sweeney Todd? And first off, I just like the musical with Johnny Depp. I like that. But in college, I thought it would be cool if I learned how to use a straight razor.
Oh, solid.
Yeah.
for actual shaving and not the other use of the straight razor and Sweetie Todd. Okay.
No.
I can't tell if I want to shave from you or not.
That's the thing. Yeah, I learned how to use a straight razor, and my friends asked if they could get a shave from me, and I would just give them a shave whenever they ask. So
that was
good thing that I'm there on that side.
Yeah, and so and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love the musical Sweeney Todd, and it just as I'm like adding these details in, it's just like, it doesn't look good. Like, I like horror, I like Sweeney Todd, I like shaving straight razor. So, I'm not a murderer.
All right.
I don't TPK, I promise.
It's like you watch Hannibal Lecter and you're just like, man, I really want to be a chef. Let's take away from that.
So if we ever have an in-person overnight long game night, I'm gonna choose a different room.
Yeah. We're just gonna lock you somewhere overnight, okay? Nothing against you. It's just the name. It's just the name.
Keep the razor away.
Yes, that's fine. I love that.
You can go. You can kill me. Just don't touch the beard. I spent too much time on it.
No touching of the hair or face.
Of course.
I do have a social. It's a small TikTok account. I just started it. I just got into I collab with one of my players who's an artist, and I just write up some scenes. I narrate. I narrate over a time lapse of her drawings. So it is Dr. Dungeon at Dr. Dungeon. I'll send the link in the chat right there.
Sure thing.
But yeah, that's me.
Excellent. And thank you for presenting. And everybody, if you, of course, use TikTok, have TikTok, feel free to take a moment to go on your phones and add Dr. Dungeon.
Done already.
Awesome. Next up, alphabetically here. Except the list kind of jumped out of alphabetical order, but that's fine. We're going to speak with Roland.
Hello. My name is Roland. I have been doing D&D for 23 or 24 years now, on and off. I started playing 2nd edition when I was 9 years old with my dad. I thought I was so cool because the book said ages 11 and up, and I was 9. So that's when I started. On
Awesome.
and off, of course. Not many people want to play with a 9-year-old, so I really didn't play that much when I was younger. And I tried to.
Where's the lie, though?
Right. I tried to get my recess friends to do other stuff, but we just played imagination as we did. But in my mind, it was D&D. So I played a lot of second edition when I was younger, a lot of 3.5 in high school. Didn't really do a whole lot of fourth edition. Wasn't my thing. I think it's great for people who have never played tabletop RPGs before because it looks really easy to learn, but it just wasn't my cup of tea. And most recently, I run 3 different 5th edition games, one of which I'm going to hopefully try to start streaming soon. What else? I already forgot the other questions.
Quirky fact or favorite pillar?
I would say my favorite pillar would actually depend on whether I am running a game or playing a game. Because when I'm running games, I love to run very plot heavy, lore world building kind of games, and suck my players in and destroy their souls. When I am a player, however, I want to just smash and blow things up. I mean, I enjoy the role play. Don't get me wrong, I really, really do. But I DM so much that I just come up with these crazy ideas of how to just destroy things, and I just want to use them.
I mean, with great power comes great lust to destroy things and to
absolutely
and to do this, like, puppeteer the character's demise in one way or another.
Yes.
Absolutely. And since you mentioned that you were looking to potentially stream a future game, I don't know if you already have a Twitch.
I do.
Or
I have a Twitch channel, but it's completely blank. And I'm pretty sure it's just at Roland Frank, which is also my TikTok account, which if we're promoting socials, that's also mine. So it's just ROLLINFRANK. That's pretty much the social I use for all of my stuff. It's good having a unique name that my dad named after his Dungeons and Dragons character, because I can just use that for everything.
Absolutely. And so feel free to post that to me or throw it in chat. And once again, make sure everybody follows. And thank you very much, Roland.
Yeah, no problem.
And I will hydrate by popular demand. And then we're going to move it on to Sensei Suplex.
There we go. Hello, everybody. All right, so yeah, my name is Sensei Suplex. You guys can call me Key or Sensei or Suplex. Doesn't really matter. I'll answer to any of the 3. Most of you guys know me, but for those who don't, basically I am a professional dungeon master who I guess is helping spearhead the likes of this project for, well, Project AURORA, a living universe, a experience again where all of these games that these fabulous dungeon masters are going to be running, they're all going to be set and played in the same universe, and they'll be able to affect each other, big or small. That said, a little bit more about me. While I do the whole sort of professional dungeon master sort of thing, I also am a full-time content creator on the likes of pretty much any and every social media platform, from Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, Twitter, you name it, I'm probably there. My experience with D&D, it is pretty small, all things considered. It's not that long. I've only been playing for roughly 3 to 4 years, around that sort of time frame. However, even though I don't have that much experience, what I typically do, and I have done to catch up with the likes of everyone, is I will almost all the time, I will look into ways to improve the D&D experience, whether it be from a dungeon master's perspective, player's perspective, and just learning or searching different Reddit threads, or just many ways to improve the overall quality of, the D&D experience. That said, another thing, quirky fact about me, the Sensei thing is not just for show. Same thing with the Suplex. The reason why the name is Sensei Suplex is because I am a 3rd degree black belt in martial arts. On top of that, for Suplex, I have a huge sort of love for WWE, WWF, or professional wrestling, and I even did amateur wrestling in the likes of high school. And just to throw it in there, favorite pillar D&D, kind of the same way as Roland. Depends on whether I'm a player or a DM. As a player, I really love the social pillar and love the interactions between talking to other players or just different NPCs, and really getting into diving further and further into the role-playing aspect of playing different characters, playing out their backstories and what to say and what to do. For a dungeon master, I do love running combat the most because I love basically being able to make the players feel awesome and do epic moments that, again, they'll remember for years and years and years in the future. And yeah, that's me.
Hell yeah. And I have been party to many a raid boss combat and many a clash and many great memories in combat. And very short, very brief, can you give us a quick snapshot of today's Soulbound session?
Today's Soulbound session, oh boy. What happened? It was mainly a lot of just role-playing and talking between the party members, establishing things, exchanging lore, exchanging information, figuring out what is going on and piecing things, or piecing the puzzles together in the world and universe. While also doing the final preparations for a big old raid boss that's getting ready to happen in about a week or two. There's going to be looking at a 9 to 12 person raid boss shortly against a common enemy and threats that has been plaguing the parties and being a pain in their butt for pretty much since the beginning of the entire campaign for both of them. So that will be definitely an interesting and epic conclusion, I'm sure.
Fantastic. And I'm gonna be glued to my screen when that raid boss takes place, because I want to see what shenanigans happen and what big highlight replays are going to take place.
For some reason, the last raid boss we had, a lot of the players and just the viewers are like, man, this is like watching the Super Bowl or watching like a soccer game or a football game, whatever, doesn't matter. Like, they were loving it. So this will be definitely something interesting.
Hell yeah. Thank you very much for providing us some background information about yourself. And then last but not least, we got Slippery Ram.
Great, I get to follow Sensei. Hey guys, my name is Dylan. My name is Dylan, also known as Slippery Ram on the internet. I've been a self-taught DM for roughly 4 to 5 years. The years kind of jumble up, so I don't really know. But yeah, I've been playing. I haven't really been a player until recently, thanks to Roland. Really good DM, check him out. But yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks.
But other than that, weird little interesting quirk about myself is that before the lovely Project Aurora, I actually tried to do something very similar. Big flop, just because the players had lives. Who would have thought? And now, yeah.
How dare they?
Exactly. But thanks to Sensei and the rest of the lovely staff here at Project Aurora, I get to try yet again. So looking forward to that. I currently don't have really any social media, but if you want to look up Slippery Ram on like TikTok or eventually Twitch, I will be posting stuff shortly. So get ready for that, get excited. And yeah, expect big stories, big character moments, and just a lot of fun all around.
Hell yeah. And of course, it's never too late for second chances and new opportunities. And it is, of course, my pleasure to be a part and to be to be a member of this fantastic community of Dungeons and Dragons enthusiasts, players, artists, dungeon masters. Did I say dungeon masters already? Lore masters, and all in between. And thank you very much, Slippery Ram, for providing us some background information about yourself. And so without further ado, I want to go through the first thing, as a matter of fact, I want to go through is talk about some of the notes from the lore master meeting. We actually have we have a lore master here in the call right now. So that would be Dr. Squiggums, who I am presuming he is here so he can better listen into the meeting.
I was there the entire meeting, so I can also go in depth with it as well.
Oh, sure. So if you wanna throw that down, then because the notes is only part of the story, since you were actually there for the full meeting, you probably have more information than what's even in the notes.
Yes. Let me go pull up the notes, or like the overarching thing real quick, and I gotcha. Announcements, where is it? It is on Google Drive. So give me like 2 minutes at the most. Go find this. Never mind. I found it that fast. Okay, so to basically recap everything that was gone over in the Lore Master meeting on, I believe that was Thursday. Essentially, what they were planning on doing, or what they were able to get done, is we decided on what do we actually need to make a D&D game and a D&D setting. What are the main essentials that, hey, we can't get started with pretty much anything until we have these things done. We broke it down into a couple of categories, and then afterwards we started fleshing out a couple of basic ideas for the setting, and afterwards we're going to give them a bit of context. Now, to inform you guys on the stuff that's going to be super relevant to you as Dungeon Masters, I'll go over that stuff, or prioritize that stuff in explanations. So, what one of the main essentials of D&D is you need playable races. You got to actually have a race to be able to play, and to actually be a character. So, one thing that we were thinking of, and that was, I think it's probably the best way to go about it. Especially when we're starting off with a new pretty much a brand new setting, and lots of lords getting ready to get reworked and more, is we were going to say that we're going to cap off the amount of races at the beginning on what is available just yet. And what we're going to do is we're going to have like roughly, again, this isn't a confirmed number, but like 10 or 12 races that are fully fleshed out, make 100% sense in the setting, and are, again, just fleshed out to the nines and really, really thematic and makes a lot of sense. We decided to start off with the typical fantasy races that you find in any sort of media. You got your standard humans, you got your elves, you got your dwarves, you got your orcs, yada, 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 right? But it goes a little bit further than that, where we gave, they decided to be able to categorize them into, not really list, but I guess just group them together. And we were going to say, and this is going to be a task I'm going to actually give out to the homebrew master team. I'll mention this later. But for example, elves will be like a general category, and there will be an all-encompassing thing for the likes of Eladrin, high elves, and wood elves. Now, whenever, let's say, someone goes into character creation, they'll choose whether they want to be an Eladrin, a high elf, or a wood elf, and all that stuff. But ultimately, they fall under the category of elves. So imagine a sort of case and scenario with like the Rangers sort of what's that ability? It's the ability where they choose a specific type of monster, and that is the one that they do more stuff with. Does anybody
Favorite enemy?
Favorite enemy. Thank you. So yeah, so imagine like a favorite enemy category. You have they choose elementals. Everybody's going to fall underneath that elemental category, but you may have like a fire elemental, a genie, or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, you're still an elemental. It's sort of that sort of thinking. The reason why is because if we start off with 50 or however many races there are in 5th edition, it'll be a lot of cases and scenarios of like, hey, how do, I don't know, Minotaurs work in this setting? How do Vidalcan work in this setting and all of that? Which would mean the lore master would have to come up with lore for everything. So to start us off small, we're going to cap it off at a couple races and then really flesh them out to the 9s, where it's not just, oh, this is just a standard dwarf and it has just standard dwarf lore. No. We are really tying them to the world and almost maybe even having the opportunity to flip them on its head, starting from the ground up. But yeah, that is the idea of the playable races. Anybody have any questions on that I could answer while we're on that topic?
Yeah, like, is this the point where we can like go to the choices that are made, or is that later?
Yeah, gotcha. So, I was even talking to Matt. So we were just saying this is what they were deciding in their sort of meeting. Again, it's just the standard races. I can actually label out what they are, and then afterwards, we're going to still add all the rest of the races of 5th edition, and also even adding our own little homebrew races that any sort of team member can sort of mention and pitch, right? But yeah, I'd assume the entire sort of staff would be able to pitch like, hey, I really want this idea. What do you guys think? Or excuse me, this race. What do you guys think? Yada yada.
Yeah, no, it's just like I can't. There's like a few things that are either confusing me or like I see are noticeably missing. But I'll just point on one. It looks like you removed all like half races. Like you removed half elves, you moved half orcs. You don't seem to have like gone into that. Has that been like a conscious choice that races are just unable to like the species are too physically different for like goblins or elves or dwarves or humans to like intermingle, or is it just basically like, yeah, you can be half, but mechanically you have to pick one of these species? So yeah, you could be like,
oh good.
So basically you could be like, yeah, my dad's a half elf and my mom's an orc, but mechanically I'm an orc. I take after my mom. There's no like mixing of traits, or I'm a custom lineage.
Yeah.
What?
So
I feel like for
it's mainly
flavor.
again.
Yeah.
It would probably, I would imagine, it'd probably come down to that. But the main reason why we chose the races is just we're trying to figure out, okay, which are the races in any single fantasy setting that you will always see. That way, like a player just joining on in, for example, let's say someone's like, all right, I want to join the MMORPG of Project AURORA. Okay, what race do I want to play? Wait, what's a Vidalcan? I don't know what that is. Or hey, what's a Simic hybrid or Kalashtar? I don't know what that is, but I do know what a human is. I do know what an elf is. I do know what a dwarf is, right? So giving that little bit of sense of familiarity to at least start off with, and then eventually in the future branching out to like, okay, now we're going to have, the Vidalcans, but now we're going to have half elves, now we're going to have half orcs and all that. And I'd imagine it's not going to be that hard to make up lore for a half orc. It's just a human and an orc. Boom. And then we can maybe add a little bit of culture and all that stuff to it in the future. But this is just starting out. Make sure we got the basis and then go crazy with everything else later. And bring in typical 5e stuff.
Sure. Okay. The other thing that was like a little concern, if we're allowed to go to the specifics, is like it mentions here that the you've like put down tieflings and Asima in here. Well, later on, it says that there aren't gods. There's just elemental forces of nature. So it feels like who is the daddy for tieflings and Asima? Who is who's the demon mommy for tieflings and Asima? If they're here.
So yeah, we'll go a little bit more in depth with that, probably a little bit later. So the underneath the humans thing, actually, this can actually connect to what we were talking about earlier. So with humans, we're saying like basically just to keep things simple, there are tiefling Asimars, half orcs, half elves. In general, would probably fall underneath the human sort of category. They're basically all the half races because they have a human or human-ish side to them, right? When it comes to Aasimar and Genasi and like why they're combined, the reason for the lore is so there are gods. It's more so the gods are, instead of them being people, they're more forces of natures themselves. So it's not necessarily I worship. I'm just gonna pick a name even though this isn't true. I don't worship Heliod, the god of the sun. It's I worship I thank the fires for being able to bless this sort of campsite. I thank the winds for being able to, keep me cool at night or something like that. Or I thank the water, yada, yada, yada. That sort of ideals and sort of thinking. That was what they were talking about before. Now, however, Again, a little bit. This is more the nitty gritty. Doesn't really matter too much because it's going to be fleshed out, and I'll be able to give everybody a more detailed answer later. There will be there was this idea of kami or similar sort of thing where there are more smaller deities that will be a little bit more apparent. Well, not really deities, it's more of individuals who have aspects of the divine to them that are typically more powerful than your average run-of-the-mill player, like level 1 character, right? All that stuff. And the way they're based off of, instead of them being more celestial based, it's more of they have a certain aspect of an element, and the closer they are tied to that aspect, the more powerful they are. AKA why Asimars and Genasis are, combined a little bit. So instead of it being, oh, I'm a angel of the divine or anything like that, it's I'm an angel of the divine, but I'm also have the aspect of fire. So you could have an Asimar with fire or flaming wings or something, or electricity wings and all that craziness.
Okay, so is it like an aspect of like an element, like aspect of fire, or is it like they would be like, I am the aspect of the warmth of the fire, and others like I am the aspect of the, don't touch me, I'm fucking fire, it hurts. And like there's two different aspects, but they're both aspects of fire. Or did you literally mean like you said like, oh no, it's very simple Greek classical elements kind of thing? You're one of the
we haven't gotten like that far, so that was pretty much as far as we got, yeah.
All right,
because again, we just came up with the basis. We're right now what they're doing is they're getting ready to start fleshing out like all the lore and starting to hand out tasks like, okay, now we need to give this context, make it make sense, and then really have all this stuff ready to go.
Yeah. Okay. I guess I have nothing to talk about until we get to the homebrew races.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I would think that while there isn't necessarily, like the monotheistic deism that kind of is implied with a tiefling and Asimar, at least in Western context, there is one of the elements is considered arcana, which is like spirit. So I imagine there's like, it's like realm of the plane of magic incarnate, and there's a lot of opportunity for all sorts of other, beings representing that elemental pillar. I would like to see what that looks like more in the future.
So Arcana, from what we were saying, is kind of like an all-encompassing thing, if I remember right. They were saying like, okay, time magic, gravity magic, all that sort of craziness, right? That would fall underneath Arcana to some extent. There was talks, but it wasn't any confirmation on maybe Arcana being like the closest thing equivalent to a god of gods, your Odins, your Zeus, yada yada yada. But again, no confirmations. That was just an idea sort of thrown around.
Yeah. And I think that there is a lot of potential in that. I think I would love to see what people come up for characters in homebrew related to Arcana.
So, quick question on that, or not necessarily a question needing an answer, but a food for thought kind of thing. If we're doing more of like spiritual elemental kind of stuff, as far as like clerics go with their religion checks and things like that, and if we're mixing that with Arcana, is that now going to be like bulked up with, might as well just be an Arcana check? Is that going to be a nature check? Is that like, how are these going to differentiate from each other? Where are the lines going to be drawn for that as far as the mechanics go?
Yeah, that is 100% fair. So, I mean, I don't have a 100% confirmed answer for you right now, but what I would imagine would be, it would depend on the context of what they're trying to do. The way I've always viewed religion is, like in D&D, is this is you being able to recall information when it comes close to the gods or the divine in general, and how that's affected the world, right? So it could be, I'd imagine, like, let's say, I think it could kind of be almost interchangeable and depends on the aspect of the player and like how they view it. So let's say that a player walks across, or a group walks across a volcano, right? One cleric, they might sort of take a little bit more of a religious approach and maybe look for the aspects of, okay, how did that or is that volcano significant? Who made it? How is it made? What has it done for the region and the world and all that stuff? Meanwhile, maybe an Arcana-based individual, I'd imagine, maybe they would think of like the capabilities of fire in of itself. Like, oh, it could tear through earth and the nature around, yada yada yada. It can be manipulated to, I don't know, the fiery aspects to harden and make stone molten. I don't know. Again, just throwing out ideas, but that's how I would kind of imagine how that would flow from a mechanical standpoint. It just depends on who the character is and what class they are, and kind of how they would sort of think about things.
Sure.
But again, no confirmed answer. That's just me imagining stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just I would want to kind of know beforehand going in, because if it could be used almost interchangeably, then it almost takes the uniqueness out of the character's abilities if somebody else could do exactly what they could do on a different skill, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So just kind of something to think about, so that way players can still feel like they have their own thing. Because if you have a cleric and a wizard go up to a mountain and one does an arcana check and one does a religious check, they're doing, and they get the same information from it, what makes the cleric's information special because they're trained in religion, and what makes the mages special because of whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, and also real quick, do we have anybody taking notes for all this stuff? Make sure.
Big
We're DMs, we don't take
grin
note.
for myself. So I figured that I was going to rely on the VOD, and then what I could do is I have like a transcribing plugin of which I can run the VOD and have that transcribed to like a Word document, and then try to like cut out the extra to make it easier. I don't know. You're correct. There is no note taking, but then again, we haven't gotten to meat and gravy yet. We're reviewing notes, so we are not behind on anything, I don't think.
No. It's just so for that question, it's I would want to write that down and then like throw it over to the lore master. So like, hey, what about this stuff? Like, you should probably consider this, you know, just so I have stuff to throw over to him. I'm gonna write this down. Give me 2 seconds.
Okay. So it seems like we've narrowed in on like the main playable races. That is to say, like the WotC, playable races that will be most prominent, and some of the dynamics with the elemental system in terms of how that plays out, how that may play out in game. This may be a fantastic opportunity for us to talk about potential homebrew races. Now, we have lore masters that are kind of thinking through what homebrew races would fit for the setting from a setting perspective. I also know that we do have the entire homebrew team, and the homebrew team had previously, at least as part of an exercise, had also submitted some homebrew options, and it was mainly for the exercise. But there may be some opportunities for any one of those to come to the forefront. But I think just for now, talking about some of the stuff that was mentioned by the lore masters, and it seems that the three options that were floated initially were basically a clockwork constructs race similar to Warforged but different. And I mean, that perfectly fits within a clockwork / steampunk aesthetic, or I guess you could say arcane punk or magipunk, or magitech or whatever, because the setting is sort of a balance between magic and technology. And then, of course, Dryad as a race. I got into a dumb discussion / debate the other night about Dryads, and I don't know if anybody here has played the one-shot Dragon Stew. It's a fantastic one-shot. I have a copy of it, but it presents creatures known as Veggielings, which are basically cute versions of Dryads. But for the most part, Dryads will for the most part encompass most of what we think of as dryads, but then on top of that, different plant creatures. Because when you really think about it, playable races in D&D, they're almost exclusively from the animal kingdom, and I just think the plant kingdom is underrepresented. And then finally, looks like a mention about a squid race with racial teleportation based off of the An-T from Star Wars. And I'm actually not super familiar with the Iang-T. But that could be an opportunity to kind of think about where that race might fit. Just as a continuance of the discussion that the lore masters had. We don't need to talk specifically about just these, but these were the ones that were brought up in the meeting.
Yeah, and those were really brought up at the end. Like, these are just like spitballing ideas once we got all the more essential stuff done. But yeah, it was more so, hey, we got to figure out what we're actually playing on, and then once we give a little bit more context to the world with like probably the normal common races, then we can probably add a little bit more context. We can add a couple more things with a cool homebrew race, right? But yeah, again, quickly summarize the rest of the stuff. Most of this other stuff won't be super important, so I can brush over it a little bit. We had the elemental entities, already went over that. We had an idea, wasn't really confirmed. It was that individuals can gain more and more power to become similar to a divine or a kami, or something similar, and eventually basically ascend, right? The more favor of an aspect they gain, aka like fire, water, yada yada, the more powerful and closer to the divine they come. So not necessarily, and don't necessarily think of this as a player's aspect. Yeah, eventually it could be a player's aspect, but it also could be a cool little thing for antagonists or any NPCs for, like, let's say, I don't know, a dragon or a mind flayer. Someone wants to become like an ascended divine, so they get closer and closer to the aspects of one of the elements and eventually ascends, right? Or is trying to.
Imagine a mind flayer with a bunch of flaming tentacles coming at you.
That sounds sick.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Oh my god. I love
Why
that.
you gotta give my players nightmares like that?
Oh yes, I love adding horror into my game. So Slippery Ram, you have something to look forward to. It's gonna be.
Oh no.
Oh man. But yeah, that was just something to look into. Don't need to go over that. Don't need to go over that. Weapons, items, and tools. This wasn't really too far thought much about. It was just like, hey, maybe guns could be a thing, or guns were probably gonna be a thing. Grappling hooks, maybe, who knows? It was just, again, just spitballing stuff. More of it will be given context, and it will be 100% finalized when we have more of the history set down. Major locations that dungeon masters might look into running or using at some point. We talked about a giant clock tower, a lighthouse being the eye of the Titan, or the Elder Titan, or not Elder's Eye, but the Titan itself. Now, what they were saying was, different aspects of the city, or excuse me, different aspects of the Clockwork Titan were going to be different portions of the city itself. So for example, I even mentioned this in the thingy, it'd be the heart of the Titan powers a portion of the city that it's put in. Or maybe like the wings of the Titan could like allow the city itself to start flying around or whatever, or be mobile. These are just general examples and ideas that they were coming up with, right? Minor locations, like the typical, these being like, you're gonna have your main thing being downtown cities, yada yada yada, but there is gonna still be a couple of forests and all of that good stuff. We even talked about there being Deadlands equivalent area where the area is kind of void of natural life in that sort of sense, where it's going to be destroyed, decayed. There's going to be ruins and buildings and all that stuff there. That was another idea thrown about. Besides that, we went into a little bit more with the setting itself of what's actually going to be playable. This is relevant to you guys as dungeon masters. We broke it down into 3 categories between the land, the sky, and the sea. Now granted, because it's 5th edition, it's 90% or 99% of the time it's always going to be, hey, you guys are on land, you guys are walking about, because 5e doesn't have a mechanic where all the races are flying all the time, right? That's just how it is. So we said 60% of the time, most encounters or scenes or things done are going to be done by land. For the Sky City, it's going to be a 30% sky, which is a lot more than typical D&D. And then there's going to be still aspects of the sea and being able to, swim around, but it's going to be chalking up to 10%. Now, what I mean by the... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. It says asteroids.
Oh,
I
yeah.
wasn't certain that the city was quite that high, but are these like actual rock asteroids or like small floating islands, or are they like trash droids, which are basically just clumps of trash that have floated off of
Yes.
So I like that idea, but it was basically small floating islands sort of thing. So it was going to be like miniature planets, not big at all. It's like the size of at most an island, but maybe you could. They were saying like, oh, it could be just an asteroid where somebody's house. It has the garden, all that stuff, but it's just like a sort of thing off to the side, right? Going back to the little playable percentage. What I mean by that, from between land, sea, and sky, like playable land, you guys already know what that dungeon diving in like mines, sewers, yada yada yada. Water being like boat warfare, you get ships, you're firing cannons, all that stuff in the actual sea, or maybe going underwater. Sky being riding atop a flying beast, could be dragons, whatever it may be, or hell, fighting in the sky with sky ships or something. That would be something sky based, right? So definitely can look forward to that. Geography features, nothing super important you guys need to worry about right now because it's nothing confirmed. It's gonna be giving a lot of context for it later. You can read that in the Lore Master stuff if you wish, though. Weather, seasons, all this stuff is just them pretty much building out the setting. Nothing you guys need to worry about just now, or it needs to be really like gone over, because you can just read it on your own. Technology levels is a little bit interesting stuff. If you guys have watched Arcane or League of Legends, of Piltover, they're thinking more of a vibe of magic and science being heavily used in tandem. So Hextech, if you guys again watched Arcane. So pretty much there being a lot of emphasis on science, but they're not afraid to use magic to be able to enhance that and push limits even further. The Divine are still a thing. They're important, but it's not much emphasis on it compared to the other two, if that makes sense. Now granted, it is also, just because it's like this for this setting, that doesn't mean for like any other regions that we're going to do in the future, they probably won't be like this anyways. It's just for, the Clockwork City, the Steampunk City, it kind of just makes the most sense. Cultures, that's going to be worked on soon. And yeah, that was basically everything gone over in the Lore Master meeting that you guys need to worry about.
Fantastic. Does anybody have any questions? And also those notes are going to be in the Lore Master General chat if you want to see them for yourself.
Yeah, I have a question about the overall, I guess, story. So the Fae that are on land, are these like the conflict that is between the Clockwork City and the Steampunk City and the Fae? Is this, I guess, what is the nature of their conflict? Where are the Fae like decidedly somehow like innately evil, or do they have good reason to be angry? Is this like do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah. So it wasn't decided 100%, but I remember it was going to be that maybe one of the Lore Masters can help me out with that one. I believe it was going to be like, yeah, the Fae are considered an antagonistic force. Most of the people view them as an antagonistic force. So anybody like Fae related, like let's say an Eladrin, a huge thing they were mentioning was like, Eladrins would be considered like tieflings, like how they're supposed to be in typical 5e, right? People kind of look down upon them, yada, 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 because they're really, really connected to the Fae, right? That was as much as I remember. I don't think they've given too much of the context just yet on the conflict between the two or the three, but yeah, that's what I just remember off the top of my head.
Yeah, because I was wondering because what could happen is, maybe the water's a little mucky between like who's in the right, who's in the wrong, and then players start to side with the different forces. Maybe they side with the city, maybe they side with the Fae, and
yeah,
or maybe the giants. Who knows? So I was wondering where where do we want them to lean towards? I'm guessing we all want them to lean more towards the city and to like be, a unifying force. And but yeah, that was a question.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine too. Leaning towards the city is what the vibe I got.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I sort of imagine that it's gonna have a general undercurrent because you're talking about civilization versus nature essentially. That if it mirrors anything about certain sentiments about nature versus civilization, it probably will be something to the tune of nature is sick and tired and is fighting back and has decided to just completely eradicate the thing that has been the threat to nature, and it sort of has pushed civilization to the skies, and the city is for the most part is in it for survival. However, the murky part is civilization did mess up nature pretty bad before this. It seems like that's kind of the theme.
Yeah, that's what the kind of vibe I was getting off. Pretty
I,
much.
I imagine that most of the parties would probably go towards the city, but I imagine there'd probably be one or two groups that would want to do the nature thing, which gives us a fun opportunity to have party versus party conflict down the line,
Yeah.
which is always fun to run.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had 2 points. One is like, I'm not quite sure because like in all depiction of Fae and all that kind of stuff, most Fae have wings and things, and so from my understanding, I don't actually know what in this like ship is able to like is to stop the Fae from getting closer. I don't actually understand what is stopping the Fae from engaging with fighting with the flying ship. Is it an active case of war? Have they figured out something that keeps them away? Is the ship moving at high enough speeds that the Fae can't keep up? Is it exuding a mist of cold iron dust constantly? And as long as they have the cold iron dust, Fae cannot get close enough and their skin burns. What is the actual measures that does not stop this from being a cakewalk for the Fae? That's
Yeah.
because I don't actually understand how the Fae have not won.
I like the
Yeah.
iron
That's what I
dust
don't
idea.
understand.
The iron dust seems really cool.
So what I remember for what it sounded like that the Fae are still in these sort of scouting processes. Like they're infiltrating the cities themselves right now. They're trying to figure out what the heck is going on, so then they can eventually lead a full-on assault, like you were mentioning. That's what it sounded like when they were describing it.
Yeah, because like if their whole thing is that no, they're like, yes, we could fight them, but it's much easier to make them submit to us. So let's go in, find them, let them turn on themselves. In which case, it's sort of like we're trying to find the turncoats to just like do it, and so that they destroy themselves, and then we rather than waste killing these killing the people. But that means I don't actually know what the phase motivations are because like did the lawmaster meeting use any of the stuff from the Excel spreadsheet that got shared along. That thing where we were discussing what the people's opinions on the social structure of like the city and the Fey courts. Did they use any of like that in those like different points of view in that meeting?
Not yet. The reason why is because we're trying to get the general basic idea of the setting first, and then right now what they're doing now is giving the context. They're actually starting to implement all that stuff. But we were just trying to figure out, okay, what the heck is the setting going to be? We're fleshing it out from a single paragraph or two, and then then now we're gonna give it the context, right, of all the stuff you mentioned.
Because like the thing is like if we're just like saying like what is the things at odds, and if we make it something as simple as like nature versus civilization, well, like that's been done in different levels, and like sometimes it's done like very carefully, like in Princess Mononoke, where like, but that's because you understand like all the sides people are coming from. You understand why nature cares. You understand why civilization is important, and you also see it done you see it very poorly. You see that like in problematic ways, like you see in like depictions of the Wild West and Native Americans. You can like see it can be like seen in like a pretty in not the best kind of way. If you be like, well, nature's turning back because we've been bad, and like people are like, yeah, well, maybe we deserve to go. So it's like if it is something that simplistic as like our starting point, and we don't have like like if we don't like narrow in on like defining that, or just like find an interesting complication on top of that, then it's just going to be, what's the right word? It's not going to be the it's going to be like a different. It's going to be a difficult like way to make people care for potentially the city side or both sides. We've got to make it feel like yes, this represents civilization, but there's a reason to believe in the city besides the fact that we are the same species as the people on the city.
Yeah.
You know, is that making
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, 100%.
I think
Yeah.
mostly the thing is the lore masters, I believe, have worked on the what, and their next phase is the how and why.
Yeah.
Is pretty much I think where we're at, and I think trying to poke holes in the hows and whys that aren't established yet and trying to figure that out and stretch it is
Yeah.
I think the next step, but not quite where we're at right now.
No,
Yeah.
you're right. I just wanted to know like I just wanted to have like know what the themes are, because once the themes are known, everything can come from themes.
Yeah, because then that's when you can actually start thinking, okay, now that we have this, now we can maybe spin a way to make a one shot or a campaign out of this or whatever, you know.
Yeah, like if the theme of the campaign is like nature versus civilization, okay. If the theme is like monarchy versus republic, sure, we can also do that. If it's like whatever like the theme, whatever, if it's like treachery versus honesty, then yeah. But we don't know until we know what the theme is. Then we can just like come up with it's just a little tricky. But you know, it's still early days. I respect that. I understand. This is just the first preview.
Yeah, exactly. Like I don't imagine us to pretty much to start talking about like actual campaigns until, I mean, depending on how long until the second meeting is, but probably like third meeting, to be honest. You know, once we actually have that context, right? Go ahead, Matt.
Okay.
There's also the additional layer of what is the openly considered reasons for this between the greater populace of Fae and greater populace of the Sky Citizens, and what is the real reason? You know, propaganda. What is it? And I imagine that there is going to be a sense of, you know, that it's a fight for survival. You know, it's like it's on the brink of survival, that we need to make sure that the enemy does not take over. And I imagine that's going to fit into there at some point.
Yeah, like backing off that, one interesting thing was said. There was like Eladrin and like other elves are like, oh, they're very Fae-like. What the fuck are they doing on the ship? Why are they here? That doesn't seem very good. But also in Fae tales, like goblins are considered like fairy tale creatures as well. So the goblins, the bugbears, the orcs, they could also be like, why are all these like Fae creatures also living on this ship? And it makes you think like maybe not everything's great in fairy tale land. Maybe there are people who like see the negative side of fairy tale land. So it's not just imposter, like people, the Fae are spying on thing. Maybe they're to like figure it out. Maybe it's not all unified down in the court. It does explain why there is the suspicion, because there are spies out and about, and there are Ladrin, there are orcs, there are goblins. So there is like that genuine suspicion.
Yeah.
You are in wartime, which does, you know, that like there is that little bit. Can we trust this person, or are they secretly reporting back to Mother Mab? But you know, there is that interesting thing of what's happening. That there is that thing. It's not a unified fun. It's just like an interesting other element to have.
Yeah. It's like the Eladrin community as like a community of Eladrin, because of the struggle and the tension between Fae and humanoids. Like that community had its own civil severance, its own split, and so half of the community is down there and the other half is up near the city. And I imagine those up near the city are sort of treated with like suspicion, like, are you really on our side? You know?
Yeah. We gotta be a little bit careful here, so it doesn't ring too true to anyone who like thinks about, you know, what America did to Chinese and Japanese people back in World War II. But there was like, but you know that thing does happen.
Right.
There's that suspicion. Yeah.
It's not resembling any specific thing from real life, and we don't necessarily want to do that, but these are themes of civilization and populaces being split and tension, you know.
It's a careful line to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sensei, what is the things as of right now that you would like the DMs to be thinking about and considering?
Yeah. So I was thinking about this for a bit. For the dungeon masters, let me go make sure I got this right and make sure there isn't anything else. Where was the notes? Make sure. So I have the tools for every other thing, but the dungeon masters, what I would probably imagine would be best is, and this is why I've been putting a lot of emphasis on schedules, probably have a general idea of when we would actually run games, like the schedule that we would do. Figure out, so for example, okay, I'm gonna pick on 2 random people. This isn't your schedules, but you know, stay with me. So Adam, they run a game Tuesdays, 3 p.m. Eastern time, right? Oh, Sensei, I also run a game on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. Eastern time. So like, or that's when I'm available to run our games, right? So now that we know that, that means, okay, I'm probably going to really try to start talking to Adam and figure out, okay, hey, what's your DMing style? Hey, what do you really prefer to run? So then when we get to the talks of one shots, we can maybe have it where, okay, hey, Adam, you're going to run or what if you run a one shot where you focus on, I don't know, the social aspects of, I don't know, between these 2 factions or whatever. So it's going to be more of a social based one shot with a little bit of a, I don't know, a cliffhanger conclusion where maybe, I don't know, explosion happens and then, you know, monsters start pouring in during this sort of meeting or hall or whatever it may be. Okay, I as Sensei, as a combat-oriented dungeon master, off of that cliffhanger, now I'm going to take that and we're going to start focusing on the combat aspects of what happened with that explosion leading up to it, or maybe what happens now, like now as a battle breaks out or whatever, and the aftermath. But I wouldn't be able to really, we can start thinking about these things now so we can coordinate them from the get-go and figure out what we're good at and what we're not so good at, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would probably imagine is the best or the next step, and all we can do right now until we get more of the lore done, right?
And taking a quick look at the results of that when is good that was posted, I am pretty much everybody sent in what their general availability is, and I am happy to say that pretty much everybody has provided a lot of opening in what time they're able to run, what date they're able to run. This also poses a problem though, because since almost everybody is at least 80% of the week, that is to say day wise, not time wise, but 80% of the week available, that makes it more difficult to narrow down, like, okay, so if we're gonna do a week of running one shots, what time frame is everybody gonna run it? So
it's gonna come down to, hey, who likes Thursday? Who likes that day? All right, you like Thursday? Cool, you're running a game on Thursday or whatever, right? It's just gonna come down to preference. But it is a good problem to have because that means we can actually now do what I wanted to do in the first place. We can have a one-shot week. Or, you know, we can schedule all of our games to happen simultaneously. Or if we want to give ourselves like a little bit of an easier time, we can split up between, okay, 5 Dungeon Masters, you guys are going to run your games between Monday through Friday. And then the next 5 Dungeon Masters are going to run it next week, Monday through Friday. So we can make sure to exchange all the lore and everybody's on the same page, right?
Right. We could also, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say that could be a good idea because especially when we have so many cogs going, it's good to take a second and see where everyone's at before we take another step forward because a lot's going to be going on. And I'm sure once we get going, we could probably minimize that window where, you know, we don't have to take so long because we're so in sync with each other, we can kind of figure it out. But especially going started, I think doing that would be a good idea.
Yeah, and it's going to be important because if we can, you know, early enough figure out like concretely, okay, so what day of the week do you want to do, what time slot, then you can immediately identify who goes before me, who goes after me. If we did it in like a specific solid week, not going to say that that's how it's going to be done, but you could better identify, you know, who goes before, who goes after, so that you know, like, okay, so if something happens in a session just prior, then, you know, I gotta make sure that I pay attention to, I mean, pretty much everybody's details, but those details in particular, because it's going to lead directly into my one shot. Maybe not like directly linearly and story wise, but if some big thing happens in the one shot before you, you might want to represent that some way in your one shot, you know,
even if it's just an Easter egg.
Yeah.
It could even be like too far to the extent of like, okay, hey, Adam, I'm just gonna keep picking on you, right? So like, hey, depending on which route your players go, I have two entirely separate scenarios planned out, and depending on what your players decide, that's gonna be the one I run, right? We can go like as crazy as that, but we won't know that until we like start figuring that stuff out beforehand, right? So
Yeah,
actually, oh, good.
I was just going to say, what we could also do as well is do another when is good in terms of preferences, because when I can run and when I want to run are two different things. I might have a preference for a certain day or a certain set time. I could run outside of those times, but I might have a preference for a particular time frame or day.
I think the reason I set it up for when are you available is because I'm so used to players giving me like, oh, look at these like 2 hours this date and then like 4 hours this date and then that's it. And nothing lines up, right? But of course, as dungeon masters, it should have occurred to me that as dungeon masters, we were already very exposed to the challenges of trying to schedule people. So we know in advance, like, oh, I should make myself open. And I did not insight that, so it would actually be helpful to make another one is good based on preference, since it has been confirmed that y'all are very much every single one of you are very much willing to make yourself open to participate, you know. Yeah.
So I have a question. Maybe we don't have enough time to do it. Maybe we got to do it the next meeting or whatever. But could we actually get that down? Like, could we decide roughly the order of what dungeon masters are going to go and all that stuff? So for example, you know me, I've mentioned this before, I love running combat, I love running raid bosses. If we want, we could, let's say for example, have me run my game towards the end, because I could do like an epic conclusion raid boss or whatever, and then maybe another dungeon master who wants to run a little bit more of the social aftermath of it, they can go afterwards, right? So based off of our DMing styles, so if you really, really like exploration, you like showing off a lot of the lore of the world, those dungeon masters could be placed at the beginning, so everyone's getting introduced to the setting naturally. You know what I mean?
I actually really like that idea. It would be all building to a point of you, for example, running that large combat, and then there being aftermath if needs be.
Now, I'm not saying like, oh, because I like this sort of pillar, that means, oh, this is only what the one shot's gonna be. Oh, because I'm a social DM, that means there's no combat or no, that's not what I mean. It's just like, hey, that is the preference of that dungeon master, and maybe that'll probably be the focus of that dungeon master. You know, our specialties, right?
I want to float this question really quick. Sensei, do you want to take the honors of being the finale one shot? So like can
I run a raid boss?
Can you run a raid boss? I mean, that would make sense. I mean, if the whole thing is building to like a climax, then that would make perfect sense. I don't know, I'm just throwing that out there, but like otherwise I guess it depends upon whether the one shots are part of like a roughly connected storyline leading to a beginning, middle, end, or if every one shot is insular and it's just kind of it's just a series of events. You know, is it a story or is it a series of events? And maybe that's another thought process to take when it comes to actually building the one shots.
So part of me, as cool as that sounds, I think I have a better idea or suggestion. Thinking about it in the span of like storytelling, you know, I don't remember exactly what it is, but you storytellers are gonna, yell at me or whatever. It's like the exposition, you got the rising action, you got the climax, you got the falling action, and then you got the, the conclusion, right? Whatever the order it is, I probably butchered it, but you can yell at me later. So I would imagine we don't necessarily end the one-shot series off with the climax being the raid boss, and have like a one-shot, maybe two or at the most, that goes over the falling action, the aftermath of everything, and then, wraps everything up at the end. Right? I think that would probably fit the most. What do you guys think?
No, I think that would be perfect, yeah.
Yeah, like it's good to give like the final minute where people are cleaning up, like it's due. Like Lord of the Rings didn't end with the ring being dropped in the volcano. It ended with everyone saying their goodbyes, going off, Legolas and Gimli just going off hand in hand, and then Frodo going off into the boat with the elves. It gave everyone a chance to see like, look at what you've done and look at what's gonna happen next. So yeah, it makes sense that someone who's like happy with doing epilogues could do it. Although to the number of DMs who've managed to have epilogues for their campaigns, to all 5 of you, great job out there in the world. Good
In the
job.
existence of DMs.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Well, I think that would also give a really good opportunity to do a lot of those crossover DM sessions for like the
Yes.
conclusion, so that we could like have the closure of like, hey, thank you for coming in. We don't even know who you are, but you just stretched your neck out for us. Like, to have those closing moments with like a bunch of players, and it also would give the opportunities to like show the community kind of what we're going.
Ooh, actually, on that note, it could be if we could make it worse. Like, okay, after the battle or whatever it may be, you have the dungeon masters. They jump into the sessions. They roleplay the NPCs that even led them to the raid boss in the first place. They're thanking them and all that. So, you know, like let's say Matt, you join in as the NPC. Yeah, hey, thank you guys so much for being able to do this, and we're gonna leave maybe an Easter egg of like, okay, this is what your characters can kind of do in the future, and then boom, we leave it at that, open ended, right?
Yeah. It'd be cool to also treat these one shots as like sort of helping to define the initial like some of the initial history of the Sky City and the world below, so that it's referenceable in later renditions, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
be like one of the first adventures of the Sky City, or could this literally be like how the Sky City took off in the first place? Like this is the adventure of this one shot, how they managed to get it to fly in the first place. Unless you want to keep that a mystery, like that's like an example we could do. Has anyone ever done Pathfinder Society? There's a point to this. I'm not just going off on an ADHD tangent like I normally do.
I've done
I've heard of it, and I
Adventures
know
League,
what
but
you're
not
gonna go
Pathfinder
with it,
Society.
Yeah. So
I know
Pathfinder
roughly.
in this Pathfinder Society, some of the adventure part or some of the adventures that are like done, these are all one shots. Almost all the Pathfinder Society games are one shots, but some of them are connected. So like at the back of them, the DM will literally write down for each player like, did you? Sometimes there'll be special notes, and it's like, did they agree with this person, disagree with this person, murder this person, or like examples like that. And so once they take that information and they show it to the DM at the start, when the next DM who runs their game, the next player of that game, they're like, oh, so that they killed this NPC who's important in this game. Okay, that means that NPC doesn't happen. So this will happen. That means even though that DM wasn't there to DM that game, they understand that and they can adjust the adventure. I imagine that some of us, even though we've given our times that we can play, we may not be able to watch each other's games or even like go through intensive notes. But if we are like planning like a one shot of like how we got the ship to rise, we'll know who like the vitally important characters are. Like the person who's supposed to be the engineer that gets the ship off. If like something happens to him, or for example, that engineer doesn't like the players, if he becomes important later on and like they need his help, that DM who's running the adventure, they just get a quick look at the notes as I like, okay, they rescued the engineer's daughter. They got the important but they lost the important piece of sky metal they need for the engine, and also they invented a new dance party. Great. Okay, those are the 3 bits of information I know, so I can adjust what's happening. So I can adjust what's happening for my adventure, but they don't need a big thing because we already kind of have not an adventure path, but sort of like what the connections are to the one shot. They don't need to know everything because not everyone has the time to watch everyone's adventure. Does that make sense? Everyone
Makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah. Also, to that note, that's also one of the reasons why we started the AURORAverse news portion of like the legacy AURORAverse stuff, was to kind of provide little teasers to players and sometimes DMs if they missed out on a session. But basically, if there was a newsworthy thing that happened, we'd write up a very small thing, which is like, the Silesia Herald broadsheet says headline, or like there are these rumors. The rumors are passing from tavern to tavern about this thing happened. And it's like little bits and pieces, like it's teaser information of like what happened previous session, or what could be expected in an upcoming session. It was kind of treated that way. I'm wondering what we want to do to kind of chronicle the stuff, not just, like for the lore masters are chronicling the background story and history of the setting, but I'm wondering, how do we want to chronicle what happens in the sessions? Like, how do we want to approach that?
I think having another person in the, maybe a player, but maybe also just a person sitting in, just kind of being like a designated note taker, possibly one of the lore masters or something. I think it would be a good idea to have a lore master there anyway, just in case, to like, oh, this is going to happen, and then a lore master can be like, okay, but actually no, or be like, oh, I as a DM haven't really run things in this regarding the fire domain or whatever, so let me quick ask the resident lore master to clarify something so I don't give misinformation, and then that causes problems further down.
It's a lore version of like having a good rules lawyer. It's like when you're like, oh, you want to grapple someone, and you look to the rules like, please tell me how the grapple rules work. It's like, oh, you want to put fairy dust into the super colliding engine. That's great. Lord, what happens when that happens? I don't know.
Exactly.
The schematics. We planned for this. Don't worry. Bullshit.
That's sort of why we were talking about, like, oh, let's create an oops folder, something that just happens during a session where it's like, we don't have lore for this. I improv'd, and this is what I said, or this is what happened. And then, like, I do think lore masters maybe have some after the facts, like, oh, like, okay, this happened, so now, so this is what makes most sense. But I feel, as DMs, I do think that we need to have the authority, right, and the efficacy to make those determinations on the fly and to adapt to what players do. And the lore masters could certainly be a help, but I think we need to have the power to make those decisions.
Absolutely. And I wasn't saying necessarily like we would defer everything to them, but just in case we do make a decision and we don't realize that it's lore breaking or creating a big huge hole in something unintentionally.
It has ramifications.
Yes, just to kind of keep things, but mostly just to write down what's happening, because maybe that will inspire them to go to the lore master meeting with other stuff. And then it's also good to just have a designated note taker, because I know I don't take notes or my sessions.
I like the oops folder. I like that idea. That was one of the things I was wondering about. Like, I don't want to say something or establish something, and then it's going to have a butterfly effect.
It's funny.
I mean, it may be good if it has a butterfly effect.
Maybe.
Like, that's,
It's funny you mentioned oops, and it's kind of unrelated, but my dad actually, when we were playing, created a spell specifically called the oops spell that would allow a player to rewind like everything by one round, so that way if something just oops, just that didn't happen, I take everything back.
Oh man. So to get kind of get back on track, to go back to my original question on how we even got here, but do you guys think, or do you guys want to go through that quick thing of saying, okay, hey, who's going to run these sessions in this sort of order? You guys want to do that real quick?
Can do, yeah.
Sure.
Yes,
okay. Sure. All right. So I think probably starting off, you guys to tell me if you think it's better another way. I think starting off, it would probably be good to break everything into 2 weeks rather than just one long continuous thing. That way we can give, time to be like, okay, how did the first week go? Where did we mess up? All right, let's fix it for the second week, right? Yeah. However those days are aligned, we'll figure that out in a minute. But so that means we'd have to figure out, okay, so there's 10 dungeon masters, so we're going to just split them in 5 dungeon masters per week. Who would be the best fit for the second week and the first week? And I mentioned before, dungeon masters who like to really show off the lore, show off presentation, or whatever it may be, to just really show off the world building. They should probably be at the forefront. That's what I would imagine. That's not necessarily my specialty, as I mentioned before, but I don't know. Maybe Matt, you're good at that. I don't know. So it's up to your preference on what you think.
I was sort of thinking. I was wondering if a week 2 would be good because it's like there's the aspect of showing off the lore and really, you know, giving the premier immersion of, you know, of the setting, and then there's the flexibility and like you know, being able to adapt to different scenarios and being like, okay, these things have happened, boom, I'm gonna it's performance versus agility, right?
Yeah.
So I could go week 1 or week 2 because I would say that I'm adaptable for both. I would suggest week 2 for myself, because I really want to make my session something that chronicles a lot of the stuff that happened already and like puts it into action, like the aftermath of it. And I think that part would be fun.
How I imagined it, going back a little bit, I imagined how what Sensei was explaining it, and I could just be picturing it different, would be like maybe like Monday, Tuesday, lore stuff, and Thursday or Wednesday be like heavy role play, Thursday, big combat, Friday, kind of revolving epilogue, and then repeat the next week, but like have that first big combat be like kind of a mini boss leading into what happens the following week, whereas the second week's big combat thing is like the big combat of the you know 10 one-shot story arc or whatever. That's how I imagined it when you were
yes
explaining it.
and no, not necessarily. That is an option, but it's more of just like the idea of like, okay, going back to the little storytelling thing, you know, it's just the rising action. This is going to be a majority of the campaigns anyways, but who's going to be mainly focusing on the rising action, who's going to be at the climax, and then who's going to maybe do a session on the falling action, right? Next position.
Got it. Okay. I was just explaining how I pictured it just to make changing things in my head.
We might also want to just really quick consider that the players, I mean, what the players want to play or whatnot, may depend upon, you know, may give them a preference of like what one shot they want to participate in. And I don't like if players, it's not going to be the same set of players throughout the entire thing. I mean, essentially, it seems to me like we're going to be dealing with multiple parties of players where they're kind of like picking up the ball after the previous session, or there's like 2 separate parties that are about to their actions are going to converge into a following whatever that one shot. And you know, like it's not going to be the same players throughout all of the one shots. It's pretty much going to be different players through every one shot, I imagine.
Yeah, I'd imagine. So make sure I got this right. So are you saying like, is there a concern on like whether a player would want to play in a certain type of game or not?
It would be that, but it would be so that as a question, but then also as a comment to the DMs that it's not going to be all of the same players for every one shot. So keep in mind that you're picking up the ball and then you're dropping off the ball, and it's every one shot is going to be different players.
Yeah, I'd imagine this is just from experience and just seeing how like Project Aurora has been. All in all, I don't think the players care too much when it comes to like the type of game or the type of one shot necessarily. Like this is what the one shot pitch is. I don't think they really care too much about it. I think they just honestly want to play D&D.
I mean, I get that. I get that vibe too. I know that, yeah.
So I don't think it will really matter that much, especially when most of the players in this is going to be staff members. So again, it's just going to be like, hey, I don't know, Matt's running their game this day. This is what it's going to be. This is what it's going to be focusing on. Again, giving that little adventure pitch. This is what, AURORA, that's what they're going to be sort of running over on their side. Hey, fit in where you can fit in,
Yeah.
It's all about scheduling at that point.
So I actually have a question, kind of an idea that's been like rattling in my brain is would we want to do like a prologue session? So like the first session, like out of this entire 10 session arc, um, of like what happened to get to this point. Like maybe we see a town just get completely like overrun, and so the party that is running that is like trying to evacuate the town while fighting off the invading force.
I like that idea. I
Not a bad idea. Yeah.
yeah.
Good prologue.
Yeah. I was kind of in my head, kind of thinking that some of our one shots would be that while we were doing the testing phase of things.
Would that be maybe an opportunity for some of the DMs to play in the prologue?
Well,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like all of staff is basically playing in the like all the one shots. We're not really
all
opening
staff.
it up to you.
I mean,
Yeah.
sure.
That way,
Didn't you
that
know?
way, if we do have to retcon anything, we're only retconning it amongst the staff and not the players, so we can make the mistakes that we can make here at the beginning as opposed to down the line.
Exactly.
Oops.
Oh. How many of our players are from like the player application section versus the staff?
Honestly, this is just me theorizing. I'd imagine like only 5 to 10 players are, to be completely realistic, because we have like what 50 to 60 staff members, 10 dungeon masters. That's most of them preferred 5 players or so.
Mm-hmm.
We're thinking like 50 players, right? Now, granted,
Right.
the only reason why we wouldn't have every staff member is because it's going to be scheduling, right? It's the bane of D&D. It is what it is, right?
Sure.
But I really, you'll be very lucky if you're not a staff member and you get to play for the first phase, right? But for phase 2, that's why we're going to be the main staff role that we're going to be increasing is dungeon masters and war masters, right? Everything
Sure.
else is kind of whatever.
I mean, everything else is important, but in terms of this particular topic, yeah. I was just thinking about the growing list of player applications we have in the player application section, and
Yeah. So, but going back to the topic at hand of like who would prefer week 2 or week 1. I mean, if you want, let's just go down the list. We'll start at the top if you want, and then we'll see. Okay, hey, why would you want to go to week 1 or week 2? Maybe give like a sentence or two why, and then I'll just add you to a list. Adam, if you
Before
wanna
we start that,
oh, good.
before we start that, can you go over the specifics of what is week 1 versus week 2? I'm trying to put this into my, make a frame of this in my head. What's going on during week 1 and week 2?
So there isn't too much like okay, this is what it is, but what I would imagine is week 1 would be more of building up or showing off a lot of the aspects of the world. I would imagine, whether it be from a lot of the main general forces, such as main big factions. It'd be showing that stuff off. Maybe key locations of the world. Maybe showing off the antagonists heavily or whatever, right? Now, again, not saying that it's all going to be world building, social encounters, and no combat. It's just that's going to probably be the main focus of it. And dungeon masters who are really, really good at like introducing a world, or who really, really enjoy that type of stuff, yeah, you probably should be in week 1, right? But for the dungeon masters, like, all right, feet to the fire, let's freaking go. Week 2, the more sort of things are really starting to bubble over and they're about to, explode towards the climax. You'd probably want to prioritize week 2, or if you really enjoy like exposition sort of stuff, like recapping all of the events or showing off what happened and based off of a whim, being ready to adjust your sort of DMing style, or not DMing style, adjust what you got to DM and plan for on a whim. You'd probably want to be towards the end in week 2. TLDR, if you like chaos, go to week 2. If you like organization and structure, go to week 1.
I would, and I also, in the DM announcements channel, I realized that one of the topics that I was going to write about on my chaoticandwriter.com site as an article was about 3-act structure, and I had an image of it, so I'm going to drop it there, and that might be like a general guide for like, story arc if we're thinking story beats and stuff. So I don't know if like we could see week 1 and week 2 in the same light generally, or if I don't know, just drop that there if anybody wants to
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so like week one would end basically at the twist, and then
Yeah.
week two is surviving the twist.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was gonna say. So it's like, okay, maybe for a one-shot idea for like the second half after the twist, it could be like, oh gosh, this crazy thing sort of happened, and we just need people to like help out now. We got to get this going, or it's gonna, things are gonna go terrible. And those would be the beginning weeks of week two, and then I don't know, crisis happens, or maybe trying to stop the event is the big sort of climax, right? That's kind of maybe towards the middle week of week two or towards the very end. And then falling action is literally just, the final one shot or two, right?
So, I know you said we would just go down, but I gotta get going soon.
Yep.
So may I go first?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
my
Yes.
preference?
Go for it.
So I think I like the twisty bits. I like the climaxes like that. So I think I would fit really well at like either the very end of the first week or just at the start of the second week. Which I mean doesn't really help, but probably if I pick the two, end of first week.
End of first week. Yeah, I gotcha. All right, awesome. All right. And then, yeah, so I got you written down. And then, Matt, did you have well, actually, no, we'll come back to that in a second. All right, so let's start back at the top of the list. Adam, what would you prefer, week one or week two, and then kind of where in that space?
Yeah, so my preference would be week one. I prefer sort of whether it be the discovery of knowledge or lore or a mystery or whatever it is. So like that inciting incident, if we're looking at the 3-act structure. So yeah, it would be sort of either the beginning or sort of middle way through the first week.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing I got. All right, so inciting incident. Alrighty. And then next up is Apra. Apra's isn't here at the moment, so we'll come back to them. Matt, take it away.
I would say that I kind of want to go right after the twist. Like that would be my preference, but I think I'm going to actually hold my preference. I want to fill. I want to make sure that the whole thing goes smoothly, and I feel like I can pretty much tackle any part of this structure. And I don't want to, I want to make sure that people's preferences, what they feel most comfortable at, I want to make sure that they get their preference, get their spot.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, next up, Core Brute. What you got?
Yeah. So I realized that one of my strengths is like introducing like fun cities, settings, introducing characters and NPCs. So like I'm probably actually better for like the initial presentation of the of the week. So like early week one would probably be better for me, or if not the first episode. So yeah, early on in week one would be great.
Awesome. All right, next up, Micah.
Oh, yeah, I was thinking towards the week one anyway, and that sits fine with me. Reason being is that I quite like the obvious setup, and then rolling from that into just what is available to the players, what is expanding, what might be on the horizon. Not actually the twist. I think I'll happily leave that to somebody else.
Yeah, so where would that fall if like there's a middle ground? Would that fall like after the inciting incident or before?
Let's say after the inciting incident.
Gotcha.
I would almost say like the prologue should carry the hook, and then right at the end of it hit the inciting incident, because that's the prologue, right?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
So I should mention that, like, if you take Star Wars, the period between inciting incident and leaving stasis is basically when Luke comes across the droids, and when Luke decides to go to Mos Eisley. So there's a lot of development and like decision making and like critical incidents and a decision to like move forward that happen in that section. So I don't think if anybody goes during the first part of the first week, they're going to be able to tap into that. It's not just one story beat.
Yeah. Alrighty. So, if that's the case, next yeah, that would be me. Week 2 climax, big explosions, big bam, big fight. Let's do it. I'll keep it very, very simple. I like when everything is at or tearing at the seams and everything is going absolutely wild and chaotic, because I believe that, like, Matt, you even know from experience, when we had the event of Project Aurora, when the world event first started happening, and we did the opening scene where literally the sun got blacked out and a giant asteroid struck into the planet itself.
I was pogging. I was like, oh my God, what the hell is happening?
With the announcer voice that I have, I think I could, and then whenever how really into it when I get to like big things happening or combat, yeah, I think that's my specialty 100%. So, climax for me, or something around that line. Slippery Ram, what you got for us? Week 1 or week 2?
Well, I'm looking at the numbers of what everyone's doing. I'm totally comfortable with both, but because of, again, numbers, throw me in week 2. I can do literally any of that. Like, if you want me to do like post twist, or you want me to do like climax, just put me somewhere.
You got it. So I'll probably, right now, from what it's looking like, chaotic in maybe week 2, but I still have yes Phil. Then you would come in right after Slippery Ram, and yeah, that's what we got.
At this point, if I'm week 1 or if I'm like literally the end of week 2, doesn't really matter. I will fill.
Yeah, I have you listed as that. Alrighty, and then Sweeney Todd, what you got?
You can put me for week 2. I like that rising / climax action going on where you feel the tension in the room. I like that stuff.
Would you like, if you had a preference, would you like it where it's right when everything is about to go off, or like when it's still building up in the beginning portions? I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, it does. It doesn't have. I don't have a preference. You can really anywhere in week 2. You can put me wherever.
Gotcha. Alrighty. I don't know. Just probably throw. The only thing I'm trying to figure out is, okay, who would go first realistically, Sweeney Todd or Slippery Ram? I guess it will really come down to schedules. I'll flip a coin. I'll just put, I don't know, Slippery Ram. You'll go right after Matt for now. And so yeah, this is what we got so far. So make sure I got this right. We still don't have APRA, but obviously we'll add them in afterwards. But Core Brute, probably being the initial, maybe the first one shot in general, introducing the world and all that. Adam, probably being the individual who's going to be the inciting incident, like what's happening, like a little bit right after the hook, what's going on, and explaining that further. Micah being right after the inciting incident, starting with a little bit of the rising action, and then Roland coming in for the end of the week, or so week 2, so right probably at the twist, right there. Week twist. And that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm missing one person.
You're missing APRA.
APRA. No, it should be, but there should be 10 of us. What am I missing? Am I crazy?
Do you mean Rollins?
Oh,
Roland's
Talus,
just popped out.
No, Talus, that's who it is. They're not here. That's why. Alrighty. Yeah, so we got that good to go. Alright, awesome. So now that we have that set up, we can, if we have other stuff to sort of really get through for the Dungeon Master meeting, we can prioritize that, but at least we have the list. We can then I can look over the times and then go from there. Do that on my end.
Sure thing.
So Matt, did we have anything super important that we got to get through?
Yeah. I can breeze through some of the other stuff because a lot of the stuff is based upon, as I mentioned, the announcement that I had sent out a couple weeks ago. One of those things is crossover management, and y'all have probably taken a look at just many different flavors of connecting one one shot into another and different ways to make that happen. And some of that will be apparent as things get built out. It'll be obvious, but there are many different ways to go, many different ways to connect stories together. So if at any point any of you have any questions on any of the ones that were listed, if you want an explanation for them, we can talk about it here, or you could DM the or message it in the DM's channel. But mainly I want to go through, so we talked a lot about time management for our schedule, but I want to talk about universal mechanics. One of the things that is sort of implied by our discussion is that if we're doing, if we're doing beginning, middle, end, or if we're trying to do this kind of 3-act structure over a bunch of one-shots, then it seems to me that the time in our setting is linear, is basically beginning, middle, end. But of course, one thing to think about is, how does time work in this setting? And the only reason I'm bringing that up is this has been a bit of a challenge in Project Aurora. This is probably the Achilles heel, is if like one person is running one campaign, another person is running another campaign, and one person decides to, something takes place over a few weeks, and another person is like, oh, only one day has passed. Then what is the current time exactly, right? What is the present? And so managing that time is an ongoing discussion, ongoing challenge. One thing that it's sort of presumed that there's linear time that moves on, and that we're not jumping around the timeline a whole bunch. Like, we are not running a campaign of events that happened 50 years ago, because like it gets confusing at that point if you're trying to connect settings together, because then it's like, oh, lore happened that I didn't even account for in my campaign, right? Time is always going to be the biggest challenge for this thing. Now, in terms, we can go about it with the general idea where, because we're just talking about one shots, it's going to be pretty easy to figure out. It's, we can sort of, as we're building our one shots, we can account for how much time we sort of plan will pass. But then there is the consideration of other ways to execute that. In terms of, for instance, if Sensei, if you want to talk a little bit about time in Vodin and how that works, without spoiling anything.
Yeah. TLDR, basically, the way time in Vodin works is it's more of I like to incorporate a lot of out-of-game mechanics to address a lot of out-of-game issues in the game so it makes sense. One of the ways or thing being, well, time, how everything sort of works, especially when you want to do crossovers. So the way, to keep it very, very simple, every 2 sessions, basically another day passes. So the first session, so like session 1, would be in the day. No matter what, no matter how long you rest, no matter how crazy and far you go and how long like an actual session may go, like let's say in game you guys are going for 20 hours. Doesn't matter, sun's still up. That's what it is. Now, at the end of it, during the second session, now it turns nighttime. And again, same thing, no matter how long the players go in game or whether it's 20 hours, 10 hours, 2 hours, it'll be nighttime, right? And then eventually on session 3, then it just goes back to day and then keeps on repeating the process. Now, in between sessions and all that stuff, between like session 1 and session 2, when it's changing from day to night, basically time shatters, it breaks, and then everything catches back up to one another. So as soon as the sun turns into the moon, then everything is back to like the starting point. Everything's happening at the exact same time. It works a lot more and a lot easier when it's just one dungeon master who has full control on like how everything works. It is an option, it's an idea to kind of do. I don't know if it will necessarily work too much, but like with multiple dungeon masters, but it's something to consider, right? That's worked out phenomenally for me to be able to coordinate when groups are where.
Yeah. So the initial question, I think, is, do we want to, at least for the one shots, agree on a uniform time frame where one shot is 1/2 of a day or 1 day, and we all agree that that's the case, or do we want to make it variable? If we just want to build out the one shots and then one person lets another person, hey, mine's gonna happen over 3 days. There's gonna be a bit of a time jump, and then another dungeon master is like, okay, well, I'll either take just after that, or I will be in the middle portion. That gets complex, but it's not impossible. But I want to know what the DM preferences are.
I have a real quick thing, and the more it just came to me during this meeting or whatever. I think that what might be the best thing, and I really want everybody's honest opinion on it. I think it'll be easier for everyone in Project Aurora, especially the dungeon masters, if we think about Project Aurora, like this is for the future when we're running campaigns, right? That we think of it as, I don't know, sprints, seasons, whatever it may be, but a set period of time where all the games are running. Afterwards, there's a little bit of maybe a time skip in game or whatever, but there's a little bit of time when we're not running anything and we're just getting caught up. The reason why is because if we're constantly going, well, one, you can get burnt out for everybody's sake. Two, it'll be definitely a mad scramble and a lot of work to keep everything going together from the lore masters in general. And the final thing, now that I'm thinking about like how we're scheduling, like how our one shots can be really, really included and intertwined, interwoven, I don't think that'll be too possible or easy to do in the future when we're just constantly running campaigns without a break. And we won't be able to do it to the extent that we'd probably be able to do it for this sort of phase, and unless we have those time periods where we take breaks or whatever. So, quick example, so I can stop talking. A sprint, whatever you want to call it, a season would be, all right, we're going to focus as dungeon masters on this entire month. All the events, all the campaigns, all the one shots, they happen in this one month. Afterwards, it concludes, and then we'll take a break as dungeon master for like a week or two or however long it may be, and then we're going to pick up either in the second month, or maybe we decide, hey, you know what, let's go to 3 months in the future or whatever, right? Let's do a time skip. I think that might be a way better idea and save a lot of headaches in the future. What do you guys think?
I think that works great. Yeah, I think that works great for like the future. I'm not sure if it would necessarily work for this 2-week period of one shots. But for the future, when we might dive deeper into other adventures, I think that would be magnificent, if I could use that
works
term.
fine.
For like a campaign. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Sensei, here's a clarifying question. Will we be sharing players? Will there be one group of players and they're doing a one shot, and then 1 week they're with another DM, and then next week they're with a different DM? I'm just curious as how that's going to work.
So from this, I've been thinking like back and forth about it. I was thinking it's probably best that we try to get as many players as possible, because I know everybody wants to play, right? So we're probably going to have a different cast between each dungeon master. However, for certain cases and scenarios, you remember how I've mentioned like, hey, it's going to be a raid boss. I would imagine that'd be a huge thing where it's just nothing but pre-existing players all playing in that one, right? We could probably just coordinate that ahead of time, is what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think? Should it be like trading players like over and over again, or should it just be, new players every single dungeon master?
I think a healthy mixture. Like, if it makes sense for the story, for them to go to another party, it would make sense. But like, if not, so if they're like, I just really want to play again, but there's no reason for my character to be there, then I'm like, okay, then probably not gonna happen.
I mean,
Mm.
I mean,
Yeah.
in that case, if that person has thing, they can always make a different character. There's no
True.
reason they can't just have two. They can't just control a different character for each DM in that situation. If you trust them enough not to metagame or anything like that, then I don't see a problem with that happening. You know, finding someone who can like match the schedule, who's like, if it's a streamed game, makes it a good streamed game, and if both DMs like, it might not. It doesn't sound like too much of a problem to me specifically. I wouldn't be of a problem in that way.
I like
I think it's
I
also
like a
just gonna- oh, go ahead.
continuancy. I like a continuancy with players with their experience to where maybe we keep every player as a round, or where they get the chance to play a session, and once every person has played a session, a game, we go into like round 2. Now this is their second session, and then they can still use their previous character, but that way everyone has had the chance to play. And then once everyone has played, it like goes into the, there's a progression. The story continues, and we just take the rounds through the parties. That's an idea.
Yeah. It should be mentioned that NPCs can and will exist between multiple one shots, helping to drive that story as well. So,
Yeah.
but that sidebar.
In regards to this in regards to this one shot, I think once the lore masters have done and sort of conducted their magic, and then we can sort of start diving into whatever the overarching idea of all this is going to be. I think we're going to have a better idea in terms of the in-world time frame. We're going to understand the beginning, the middle, and the end, and we're going to be able to understand that maybe my session might take 3 days, and then that'll lead to a particular part which might take a day or a week or whatever it might be, and we're going to have a time frame built out to fit the story, so to speak.
Yeah.
I think the important part is everyone gets the chance to play that wants to, and make it as simple as we can, because there's so many moving parts here, and the more simple, the more smoothly it's going to go. And I think the players are also going to realize that too, or like we understand, the lore masters, the DMs, all the other people there, we are juggling a lot of stuff, and I think they're gonna get that. So they'll.
So actually, I think I can add a lot to this. So the way I run it with Soulbound, little campaign where it has 4 campaigns or whatever, and then I told the players like, hey, at any point you guys might end up crossing over, right? I have it where there is a dedicated group, like this is this group's session on this day, this is when they will play, right? But I mean, hey, if you're available and if you want to play, and it also makes sense for your character to even be there in the first place, then by all means you can join on into the session or whatever, right? As a crossover, because it makes sense your character is there, and as long as a dungeon master or whatever, it makes sense to have a crossover, and I actually want to run for this XYZ amount of players, then go for it. But having it where it's like, okay, Friday this is the group that will be here, yada yada yada, Saturday this is the group, Sunday that's the group, and then oh shoot, a character from Friday wants to join on in, makes sense for the story, no reason why they shouldn't be there, sure, let's go for it, they're in, for however long it may be.
Makes
That's
sense.
what's worked so far for me. But yeah,
Super. So just to make sure we've solidified it, are we looking to get the concrete idea of time right this moment? I mean, it's going to be a prerequisite for a lot of stuff, but what does everybody feel like settling on? At least so we can start converging. I do think Sensei's idea of choosing a chunk of time and then having the amount of time that passes be appropriate for each one shot, as long as it's within that chunk of time.
yeah.
I love that idea, personally.
I mean, I think it just keeps it simple, keeps it organized, where it's just like, all right, Core Brute, you're running. They basically say, hey, I'm going to run my session. It's going to be over the course of a day, a couple hours, whatever. And then afterwards, Slippery Ram, they're like, okay, my session is taking place right after Core Brutes, and it's going to be over the course of 3 days. Basically keeping a chronological order of everything, and then establishing that ahead of time. And if we're doing the whole thing with we take a bit of time off, we can start planning all of our one shots way ahead of time. Our campaigns even where we already know everything, right? We're good to go.
The nice thing is that since we're kind of following 3-act structure generally as an idea, that can also inform the amount of time that passes, because like right after the twist, it could be either that it picks up the very moment after that twist is revealed, or there are some days or weeks between the twist and the following chapter, so that there's time for like society to like process it, and you get to kind of prologue a little bit of the aftermath going into the next session. Like that's also an informing factor.
Yeah.
So okay, over that period of, what is that period of time though? Are we thinking a month? Or are we thinking 2
we're talking about
weeks?
specifically this start, I don't see why it would be. In my mind, I don't see why it would be longer than like maybe 2-3 weeks max.
Okay.
So are you asking when are we going to start playing this? Like 3 weeks real time? What do you?
No, in game.
Yep.
Oh,
so
there's
real time, which is we are scheduling over 2 weeks. Like our one shots are happening, but in game, what the events that take place, what is being represented in those one shots, what is the amount of time, what's the encapsulated amount of time?
So
I think a month is a good time.
The problem is like we don't know what it is. We don't know. If this is like this is like someone's really bad day. It could be 24. It could be we are literally splitting up 24 hours as everything like, oh, this is the happy morning. Everyone's getting a cup of coffee. Things are going down. Then by 12 o'clock, there's an explosion. Okay, we got to figure out who's doing this. James Bond chasing, and it's late at night. Like we haven't got much time. We got to do it. And then there's this big battle at the end where Sensei's running thing. And then stopping it. We stopped it before Doomsday, before the midnight hour. Let's relax over with some midnight shawarmas, and it's fine. We don't know. It could be weeks. It could be the whole Dark Knight Returns, which is like over the course of months as Gotham is collapsing. That's like weeks and months that's happening. We don't know. We don't even know what the plot is. We can't give a time frame. We don't know what the plot is.
Yeah. So you're saying that the time frame should be informed by the one shots and not the one shots informed by the time frame.
Yeah.
Ideally.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think what we should do, whatever we have our next meeting, it might be a more private meeting because we'd be talking about content in the one shots. We could have everybody just state generally what their plans are, idea is for that one shot, and then we discuss timing. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
I mean, it depends on how much the lore masters have. It could be like a thing of like, hey, if the lore masters have enough of a setting where we can start pitching an idea, like, all right, maybe all the dungeon masters come in with like 2 or 3 ideas of a campaign, or not campaign, a one shot you want to run, right? Yeah. It could be that.
Okay. So. In which case, we're going to settle on that. One last thing I want to cover. Very, very last thing. It doesn't need to take a lot of time. There is the concept of the Keeper. I mentioned it in that announcement. And basically the short version for me, and I'll let Sensei tell the longer version. The short version is the Keeper is a device to pull potential characters in and out of situations, usually between sessions. If somebody can't make it to a session, the Keeper sort of steps out. He basically is a multi-dimensional being dressed up as a plague doctor who just kind of steps in and opens up a portal and then yanks a person through and then throws another person out. It's just kind of it's a trademark of the AURORAverse, essentially. So that the thing is that it will be a little different because we're going to have different players and it's not all going to be the same setting. We don't necessarily know if one shot is going to pick up directly from one specific scene or not. If that's the case, then it could be it could be a matter of we just say that certain, oh, okay, so these players go their way and these players come in, or we could pull in the keeper in one way or another. I will let Sensei extrapolate a little bit more lore about the keeper, and then we can talk about if and how we want to implement the keeper as a mechanic.
All right, Dungeon Masters. How many of you have ever had this issue where it's like, you have this awesome sort of thing prepared, and then just one of the players' life gets in the way, whatever it may be, they just can't make it. And you have to sit there, it's like, well, why is Bill not here? Oh, he went to go sleep in the tavern. He's gonna be there for 24 hours or something dumb. Or he goes off into the forest for a little bit, right? You have to come up with this ridiculous reason on why they're not here, or you might end up saying, you basically role play their character. Like you give maybe a player one of the character sheets and they sort of go through it with it. But it's always that sort of feeling like, dang, well, it could be that character could get killed in the hands of another player, and that doesn't feel right. So that's why the keeper exists. He's an idea taken from XP to level 3, where basically, again, as Matt described what he is, a Plague Doctor mask, he pretty much opens up rifts and portals and takes players into the rift, into the portal, and basically excuses them for the time being. Everyone knows about the keeper, like player-wise. They know about the keeper. They know what he's doing. They know that, hey, this is the Dungeon Master saying this player isn't here, and this is the in-game reason of why they're not available at this time, and all that stuff. Now, in-game, if you want the characters to have no idea who the heck this masked figure who is just going around stealing their friends, then by all means go for it. It's funny that way. Or you can, again, just sort of chalk it up to it's a player-DM agreement. Don't ask about the keeper. He's a thing. No one asks about the keeper unless you want to die. Not really like die, but like, don't go into that guy. The guy's weird and creepy.
Guy comes back with Mardi Gras beads after the keeper returns in.
Very bad things have happened.
And then it leads to like wacky ways of how you can reintroduce characters or take characters out. He can basically be a cartoon character. I've had it ways where he literally smacks somebody and turns them 2D and then just blows them up into a balloon and they fly off. Like you can go crazy with him. It doesn't matter. Like if you want to just have it where it's actually more thematic and epic, where he's just like escorts somebody out, sure, go for it. But I like doing the cartoon wackiness.
He walks them off stage.
Stage left. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think the keeper is essential to like being able to, especially like when multiple dungeon masters are running it. The keeper is essential to running a game in general. If you've seen the crossover episodes, the keeper was like pulling people in and out left and right, because obviously not every player can make it to every single day of D&D. It's not realistic, right? But yeah, that's basically the keeper.
So,
any questions?
Yeah, any questions?
My only concern with him is that, like, he's for most settings, this have this multi-dimensional being that looks like a figure associated with death that shows up and like can do this kind of stuff. That works in like settings where like, oh, multiverse is important, or yes, we're aware of like gods have entities and avatars and do those kind of stuff. But in this setting, we don't like the gods aren't really like given as important as like the forces of the forces of the elements, and it's like it's not clear what element this person would represent. And two, his methods, all you're describing, both the epic take someone and walk them into a portal and then slap them into a cartoon, they sound very Fae-like. And in a world where everyone is scared that the Fae are on, like, why is this guy here? So like, either he needs someone else needs to do the role of the keeper in that way. There needs to be like a little bit of like explanation, like, oh no, the only reason we're around is because the plague mask wearing Reaper managed to pimp slap a Fey Lord and allowed us to get away. So when he shows up and borrows somebody, you just say thank you and leave him a bowl of rice. I don't know, a rice and bourbon, but it's just like
leave him some cookies and some milk.
Yeah.
I wish my players did that, but they don't. Nah, but that makes 100% sense. So I would probably say, like, we might even look into not necessarily using the keeper, like what he is now, coming up with our own version of the keeper that accomplishes the same goal, right? Of taking players out and all that, right?
I've thrown the token of the keeper on the stream if you want to see what he looks like.
I don't know if everybody saw it, but my screen like glitched out when he entered, and I was like actually a little afraid of that.
just boom, appeared.
That slap was coming close to you.
I was like,
Micah, you're getting
right.
stolen. You're getting stolen by the keeper right now.
You're getting dusted.
I could even argue though for like the keeper in this setting. We're saying like the elements are more of like the divine entities. What if he was just the embodiment of chaos? And so that's like the sense that he is, and like that's why he like in the realm of like in game and whatever. It's just he just randomly takes people and nobody questions it. They're like, I mean, you could end up like him if you try to intervene. So just let them take whoever. I'm sure they'll be back. They have their own plan in mind, and so
Another thing. It doesn't even have to be the keeper. It doesn't have to be a person. It could literally just be poof. They turn into sparkles and they vanish. They disappear. Gone. It could be something as simple as that. Like, oh no, the Fae have taken somebody or whatever, right? We obviously make a lore reason of why this even happens in the first place, but it can be something as simple as that, right?
We could.
Oh, I love the idea of a keeper.
Whoever was actually about to say something.
What's up? Sorry.
Go ahead, Brute. If you had to say something.
Oh no, Sweeney, you
okay.
go first.
All right. I love the idea of the keeper. Sensei, is this something that we want to like keep the Aurora verse like concept of what the keeper is, or do we want to make something reskin him in some way?
It doesn't matter to me. It's two separate universes. I don't really care.
All right.
I mean, I have an idea.
I guess that, well, the only thing I'll say is I've always been a little clueless about whether this setting will be incorporated into current Auroraverse, or this is just the spawn of something completely new. But in either case, I think the Keeper is a trademark and a fantastic individual to throw into the mix. And I will be quiet so the next person can talk. Sorry for interrupting.
Outstanding citizen, this Keeper.
I was gonna say, I have an idea for like a reskin that me and Sensei kind of have an idea of a certain entity in mind who might be able to pop in every once in a while, very unassuming, and might have a knife and some sunglasses on him. It might also be a duck by the name of Waddles the Destroyer.
Oh my gosh! Are you talking? What? Hold on, I want to go get him.
Oh,
So like,
all right.
oh, Waddles.
He's talking about Waddles. This guy. Oh my goodness! This is the individual who's going to take your party members and definitely not murder them.
definitely.
Listen. Waddles just want grapes. Waddles just wants grapes.
I'm gonna be honest. I think my players would feel safer with the Reaper.
You're telling me this little guy right here is giving you death vibes? I don't know, man. I don't know.
Where did he get the knife? He's too proficient with two small things slippers to hold them. The fact Don't be scared of the man who can hold a knife. Be scared of the man who can hold a knife with their feet. That's what you need to be scared.
Scared of a duck who can hold a knife with their feet.
Yes, exactly.
Oh man, this is so dumb.
So just an idea. Just an idea.
All right. Yeah. No, the only idea I was gonna say is just like back when you were saying, oh, maybe it's just people poof into fairy dust. I was just gonna say like, well, because maybe one of the ideas that Earth is kind of like might be a little bit damaged. That's why the place has to fly. We could say the sky's a little bit damaged, or reality's a little bit damaged. Sometimes rips in reality occur. You fall in. We do have retrieval methods to get you back, so it's not like we think you're gonna die, but you are briefly isekai to another place, and you come back, and you talk Japanese for a minute, and then you come back to that little 13 episode season never happened because they're just everyone else forgot about it.
Listen, you have to learn Japanese for that, but yeah, what you do for a D&D campaign, you know? What you do for a D&D campaign.
Yeah.
I had an idea for a reskin, and it wouldn't even really be much of a reskin. It's more of an alternate explanation of what the keeper is, who the keeper is, and that is maybe it's not just a single person who is known as the keeper. Maybe it is a race of beings known as keepers, and they are known across the world, across the universe, as protectors of the timeline. And so when they pop in, they have to grab a person, grab a being, someone, take them temporarily out of this timeline, and then when they bring them back in, it's just like a seamless, they go in a portal, and when they come out, they enter into, whatever timeline they are in. And everyone understands that these people protect existence, and for whatever reason they take this person out, because if they stayed there, something terribly wrong would a wrench would be thrown into the machine that is the timeline, and catastrophe. So almost like Doctor Who, like a Time Lord kind of thing.
So what I get from this is you're not in this adventure. Just like someone's coming with a book. Yeah, you're not in this adventure. Get out of here.
The really funny thing about this is I'm imagining a party of players all say, all right, we're in this adventure, but we're going to rescue this thing. It's going to be fine. It's just getting a cat out of a tree. It's not going to be that bad. A keeper shows it's not safe for you to be here. Takes you away but it's safe for us. What's happening with the cat? How bad is this cat?
This thing eats spellcaster. Eats spellcasters. You wouldn't want to be here right now.
I love this idea so much. I'm just I'm over here scribbling down notes yes, write that down, please.
It's going to provide some funny moments, because if it turns out that we run it in a way where these keepers, they pull somebody out of a timeline and into another timeline, essentially maybe skipping a few hours or skipping a day, the person that comes out on the other end could end up being, oh no, I missed my nephew's bar mitzvah.
What year are we in?
Oh, man.
I'm sorry I wasn't there. The keepers took me away. What am I supposed to do?
It wasn't right for the timeline, so I gotta listen to him. What do you want me to fight him?
Listen. I really would have wanted to come to your granddaughter's third-degree wedding, but the keepers took me. I'm sorry.
When you are touched by fate, the keepers are now in management of your week.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically all characters are fate-touched individuals, of which the keepers are allowed to pull in and pull out.
Yeah.
Sort of
Basically, you sign a contract with them. We're like, if we need you, we can pull you.
You signed it at birth. Wait, what?
You have been activated as of start stream. You have been activated. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't worry. I can just imagine someone at that wedding, and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll never leave you." Now, do you accept this person? And it keeps us. Hold on, this is too dangerous. What?
You're not supposed to. Just yeets them out of the story.
I've trained my entire life for this one moment to become Wait, what? What do you mean I have to go?
It could also happen inversely, where it's like a character has been building themselves up, and it's I'm just trying to figure out the moment of when I'm going to be able to do something heroic, and then the moment they realize they were pulled in by a keeper through a portal, and they end up someplace, and they look around, they start pogging, and they're like,
this is it.
God,
this
so
is
much more
my
epic than
time.
rescuing a cat.
I love this.
I've been chosen.
This has to be our idea. All right, all in favor for the keepers. Oh man, I love it.
Yeah,
this is too great.
Yeah, I like having different keepers, which means we can give them different personalities. Some are serious, some will be cartoony, rather than just one guy with split personality under the mask. It's just it's different.
Yeah, everyone thinks it's like a whole organization, but it's just one person. Just different voices as to not avoid it. And I guess just avoid suspicion. Yeah.
One is
aggressively applying makeup, making sure.
I mean, we've never taken off the mask. The keeper could be a Time Lord. We don't know.
Who knows?
The keeper is just Sensei.
You know,
He has the mask under his bed. Don't
I
trust us
can't
on
hear
this.
you.
We don't know.
What did you tell them, Waddle? What did you tell them?
oh my boy.
Oh god.
So it sounds to me like we have indeed solidified the desire and necessity to have not just one keeper but multiple keepers, and that it is surrounded by this general idea of if you are taken by a keeper, it is for very specific purposes, and there has to have been little stories or anecdotes of keepers showing up in past history and past situations and stuff. So people ought to be folktale aware of these beings as keepers, but lore about them is not known. It seems to me like that's kind of what we're gravitating to.
Question.
It'd be nice if there was a folktale. For the players, they'll just be they'll miss a day or two. But in the folktale, they took someone and he appeared 100 years later. His age.
Oh god, that must be the most extreme example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick
It's
question.
we need your engineering later. We do not need it now. We need it later. We need your magic later.
Can we implement this? I love this lore too much. Can we implement this lore into actual Project Aurora, the Universal Project? I love this idea too much. I need confirmation.
All right. If we're going to do this, you need to run a one-shot where the keeper is handing the Prometheus flame down to the keepers. This actually has to be solidified in game.
The player's already screwed over the keeper now, so he's out of a job. He had one job and they kicked him out of it. So it might as well. This makes sense to me. Oh man.
There's a void, so we made it a family business.
Now there are multiples of us. You'll never know who's who.
They have to have some sort of theme that makes them look like something that brands them as a keeper. I don't know, some sort of piece of dress or something, or color.
They all
wear
top hats.
They all wear top hats.
Fedoras.
Fedoras. Oh god.
Absolutely not.
They all have a monocle.
Oh, but yeah, I actually like that. What if they all have
their mask? Get over it. You can't see it.
They all have top hats, but they
monocle.
also have a mask. But you can choose whatever the mask is.
I think having different kind of masks would be interesting. Whichever DM in charge has a mask for their specific keeper. That'd be a fun thing.
Yo, that would be sick.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
You see,
good.
No, yeah, if someone says oh, right, it's oh, the keeper with the tiger mask showed up, that's Coreboot. So oh, the keeper with the duck face. Okay, Sensei's grabbed somebody, and then that just little indication okay, they might need them for a crossover or something or a hint that things are happening. Maybe just two keepers show up when one person's missing, and they have an argument about who takes him. And it's okay, why is that happening? And just these different things. But also, it's also putting a little bit of us in there, because some DMs don't get to be players. But just nice, even if you're not being a player, just that specifically is.
That's my keeper.
Two things, real quick. I'll make them very, very quick. One, I am 100% gonna get a commission dart from my keeper. That sounds hilarious and amazing. I want it.
100% me too. Yeah.
And then two, I can just only imagine it's Avengers Endgame, and everybody's coming together. Even all the keepers from all the realms, they're fighting in the big battles,
big cloud.
I mean,
what the hell is going on here?
we should have 13 keepers. Everyone represents a different class of the D&D classes.
Yo, I love that.
Maybe the trademark for the keepers, they look different, but the trademark is their portal that they open up. When a keeper's portal opens, maybe it's purple or something else, but it is a specific type of portal, and it is recognized.
Someone write that down.
And no one can make it other than that.
All right.
And there's a faint ticking.
But each portal ticks at a different speed.
Oh man, I love this.
For a moment I thought you said typing. Like there's a faint typing sound, but no one knows what typing is.
It's not faint.
That's me. That's me.
But it's not very faint.
No one knows what typing is because typing keyboards are like.
Hey Matt, is there anything else that we really need to tackle? Because I haven't eaten since I've been up since 7. I have not eaten a thing, and it's 4 p.m.
You're muted again.
Nah, I get it. That basically encompasses the stuff that I figured we should go through, that are like top priority, the big rocks. Of course, there's other stuff like the setting specifics, and that can be volleyballed, exchanged between the lore masters and dungeon masters in chat. But I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up. Before we actually leave, is there anything that anybody wants to bring to the table, question-wise, comment-wise, or anything of that nature before we wrap things up?
Yes, actually, I have something real quick. Give me a second here, because that is not the right camera. I don't know why. Anyway, whatever. It doesn't matter. I will be bringing waddles into this universe.
Oh, definitely.
Just a warning to everybody.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm totally with you on that. Just a level 40 character.
Yes, of course. Has the stats of 12 Tarask and no one can do anything about it.
Like 12,000 HP.
It's immune to all effects.
Yeah, immunity to all bludgeoning, slashing, psychic, spell damage. Yeah,
immune to every spell.
Immune to every disease.
Why not?
Spell deflection on a 1 to 6. Yeah, you roll d6 on a 1 through 6. It deflects.
Yeah.
I was just gonna have them be running around the town like Chocobo.
No,
That's great.
I think that would be a bit too OP for that.
No, not if they had the stats of 12 to ask. No,
that's not strong enough.
Just like 80 legendary resistances a day.
Honestly, yo, that would be adorable if we had just waddles as like mounts. Just throughout the city. Like, you don't ride waddles. Like, come on.
Shit.
They're just giant chickens. Like,
for my Club Penguin fans out there, what if like instead of those like little, I forget what they're called, but the
Puffles.
little fluff balls. Yeah, thank you.
Puffles.
What instead of those, they were just waddles. You could just get your own colored waddle as a pet.
So Project Aurora shop coming soon. just waddles plushies.
All minority of people.
Poros. Oh no! What have we done?
Here, I'll get a picture. Don't worry.
Yeah, for the small minority of people who never did Club Penguin, I don't know what that looks like.
Oh no!
All right. So here's what I think. I think this would be a good opportunity for us to wind down the stream, so that I can resolve everything, and people who need to like go and take a nap or get food or whatever can do that. We can certainly just, we can continue chatting in DM chat or in general chat, whichever we want to do. I know I'm going to need to take a break as well. But I think this is the point where we're going to wrap up the main meat and gravy of the meeting. And I am going to thank every single one of you for joining in on today's meeting. And that, of course, was Adam / ADM. That's also Apra. Core
well,
Brutes.
kind of.
I mean, the Core Brutes. Micah. Sensei Suplex. Sweeney Todd, and Slippery Ram. And once again, for all of you that have popped in at one point or another and are curious about what is this whole Project Aurora thing you're talking about, I've been hitting the command a bunch of times, but I will actually say it outright. Project Aurora is a community of D&D players, creatives, world builders, dungeon masters, specifically around a living universe setting, The initial legacy universe is a bunch of different campaigns that coordinate with each other, and this meeting in particular was about a mini project to sort of roll out a completely new phase of Project Aurora. So if you are interested, if you're a D&D enthusiast, dungeon master or player, or you have no idea whatsoever and you just want to learn a little bit more about Dungeons and Dragons in general, feel free to go over to the chat, click on that link and say hello, introduce yourself. We'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to have a conversation with you. Stay tuned for more information as we roll it out in the oncoming days. So once again, it's been a pleasure and a privilege, and us being Project Aurora, we'll see y'all in the next episode. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Hello, goodbye.
Have to hit that streaming over button. There it is.
Sensei, go eat.
Boom. Something. Huh. One sec here. What happened to my webcam? Okay, so I wanted to address everybody really quick. So let me see if I can get my webcam back up. God damn it. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, there we go. We've returned. Excellent. So once again, I want to thank everybody who's been sitting in the stream, everybody in chat, everybody watching. Once again, thank you very much for tuning in. Yeah, it's very exciting stuff. I'm very interested in see what other ideas we come up with, and this is not just like rogue brainstorming. We are confirming for this setting, which is called Clockwork Skies / Green Tides, which is a steampunk, also Magitech kind of setting. What sort of things we want to have in the world, what sort of things that we want to do as DMs to run it, and on top of that, what we want to see as we're rolling it out. And it's not just the dungeon masters, we have lore masters as well. They're coming up with a lot of the background lore, a lot of the history. We have homebrewers. They're coming up with things to certain mechanics and like homebrew races, homebrew classes, stuff like that. It is going to be a very fun project, and we are kicking it off with a series of one-shots. And so we're planning for those series of one-shots, and those one-shots will be essentially be the prologue of the entire setting when you think about it, really. So if you're interested, if you're as excited as I am, once again, Project Aurora is the place to check out and get more information on it. We are still, I'd say, pretty deep into phase 1 because we've only just recently confirmed the setting and a lot of like the lore details, but there's a lot of very fun, very interesting stuff coming up. So I sincerely hope that each of you get an opportunity to be a part of it in one way or another. So one final thing is I want to do my part as part of a Twitch streamer, and I want to pay it forward to somebody. So I'm going to jump onto the Dungeons and Dragons category for wherever it went. Dungeons and Dragons category on Twitch, and we are going to find somebody to perform a raid. And I will be targeting most specifically individuals who are also doing world building stuff. Chat submitted map prompts might be an interesting way to go. This is by Absol Owo. They're doing digital art and they're doing map prompts. Now that could be really fun. I think it would be, I think if you're interested, that would be an excellent opportunity to get a little bit more creative energy in, especially after the talk we've had. You probably have a whole bunch of creative energy to spend. So after this ad roll, I'm going to check to see if Absol Uwu, they are a VTuber, by the way. And I'm going to see if they get a, I'm going to turn desktop audio down. I want to see if they respond. And if so, oh, yep, we have a response. So I think this is a excellent opportunity to give them as much love and appreciation as you've given us today. So once again, it's been a pleasure and a privilege. And I, Chaotic and Writer, we'll see y'all in the next episode. And let's begin our raid. So I want you all to prepare for battle and provide as much support for our fellow Twitch community and fellow D&D Twitch streamers as possible. It's intended for mature audiences, so just make sure to keep your kids in the other room. So provide as much love and support for your fellow Twitch streamers as possible, and let us go. Are you ready? It is time to raid.